The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Elegant cream cardstock with gold embossing that probably cost more than my supposed weekly grocery budget. My sister Patricia had always been one for grand gestures, but this was excessive even for her. Maybe try the community center, she'd suggested during our last phone call, her voice dripping with false concern. It's more your budget. I know things have been difficult for you since the divorce. Difficult. That's how Patricia described my life now, a series of difficulties and downgrades. From the suburban housewife she'd envied to the studio apartment dweller she now pitted. If only she knew that my difficulties included deciding which of my 7 companies to take public first. I studied the invitation again. The Rosewood Estate. Of course she'd chosen the Rosewood. It was the crown jewel of wedding venues in the state, with a 2-year waiting list and prices that made most people's eyes water. What Patricia didn't know was that I'd bought it 18 months ago, along with 6 other properties, when I was building my hospitality portfolio. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Got your RSVP. So glad you can make it. Just remember, cocktail attire means cocktail attire. I know you've been shopping at discount stores lately, but maybe rent something nice? I don't want you to feel out of place. I set the phone down without responding, looking around my studio apartment, actually the penthouse of a building I owned. But I'd convinced my family it was a studio by only ever video calling from one corner. The rest of the 4,000 square feet remained carefully out of frame. 3 weeks later, I pulled up to the Rosewood in my 10-year-old Toyota Camry, the one car I'd kept from my marriage. The valet looked at it with barely concealed confusion. Guests at the Rosewood typically arrived in vehicles that cost more than houses. I'm here for the Patricia Winters wedding, I told him. Of course, ma'am, we have special parking for, he paused delicately, overflow vehicles, just around the side by the service entrance. I bit back a smile. Even my own staff didn't recognize me. Perfect. The Rosewood looked magnificent, which was hardly surprising since I'd personally approved the $2 million renovation that had just been completed. New marble terraces, restored fountains, and gardens that had been featured in 3 national magazines. Patricia had chosen well, even if she didn't know she was essentially borrowing her sister's property. Samantha, my cousin Linda, spotted me first, her eyes immediately scanning my outfit, a simple black cocktail dress I'd bought off the rack. Oh, you made it. Patricia was worried you might feel uncomfortable. Why would I feel uncomfortable at my sister's wedding? I asked innocently. Linda exchanged glances with her husband. Well, you know, the venue, the guest list. I heard the governor's coming, and several Fortune 500 CEOs. It's just very out of my league, I suggested. I didn't say that. She flushed. It's just that Patricia mentioned you've been having a hard time living in that tiny apartment. Working retail. That was the cover story I'd given when asked about my job. Technically true, I did work in retail. I owned a chain of luxury boutiques across 3 states, but I work in retail sounded different from my own 47 stores, and I'd been curious to see how my family would treat me without the buffer of visible success. The results had been educational. Linda, Samantha, Patricia appeared in a flurry of white silk and perfectly styled hair, her wedding planner trailing behind with an iPad and a stressed expression. Linda, you look gorgeous. Samantha, she paused, taking in my simple dress and minimal jewelry. Well, you tried. Congratulations. Patricia, I said, genuinely meaning it despite her casual cruelty. The venue is beautiful, isn't it? She preened. We were so lucky to get it. There was a last-minute cancellation. Someone's financing fell through. Can you imagine? Poor things probably couldn't afford the deposit, but their loss is our gain. I knew exactly whose financing had fallen through. A tech executive who'd tried to lowball one of my companies on an acquisition. I'd bought the Rosewood and cancelled his daughter's wedding as a petty but satisfying response. Patricia had been the beneficiary of my moment of vindictiveness. Ms. Winters? The wedding planner interrupted. The venue manager would like to speak with you about the ceremony arrangements. Can't it wait? Patricia snapped. I'm greeting guests. He said it was urgent. Patricia rolled her eyes. Fine, Samantha, try to mingle. But maybe avoid the governor's table? We don't want any awkwardness. She swept away, leaving me standing with Linda, who was trying not to look embarrassed on my behalf. She doesn't mean to be cruel, Linda offered weakly. Doesn't she? I asked. Tell me, Linda, when did my family decide I was a failure? Was it the divorce, the studio apartment, the retail job? Linda shifted uncomfortably. It's not that we think you're a failure, just that I shouldn't sit near the governor because I might embarrass you. Before she could answer, I heard a familiar voice. Ms. Harper, Would you like to review the renovations you ordered? Every head in the vicinity turned. Marcus Webb, yes. The same Marcus who managed my other properties, stood in his impeccable suit, iPad in hand, looking mortified as he realized his mistake. Renovations? Patricia's voice cut through the sudden silence. She'd returned, the wedding planner looking confused beside her. What renovations? Who's Ms. Harper? Marcus looked at me desperately. I could save him, pretend it was a case of mistaken identity, or... Hello, Marcus, I said calmly. I thought we agreed you'd be discreet today. I apologize, Ms. Harper. I didn't expect you to be. He gestured vaguely at my location near the service entrance. Here, shall we discuss the terrace additions in your office? My office? Patricia's voice had risen an octave. Samantha, what is he talking about? The cat was effectively out of the bag, but I tried one last deflection. It's just a misunderstanding. Ms. Harper is the owner of the Rosewood estate, Marcus said, apparently deciding to commit fully to his mistake. Along with several other properties in our portfolio. The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear my family's worldview restructuring itself. That's impossible, Patricia said flatly. My sister works in retail. She lives in a studio apartment. She drives a 10-year-old Camry. All true, I confirmed. I do work in retail. I own a chain of luxury boutiques. I do live in a studio, the penthouse studio that takes up the entire top floor of my building. And yes, I drive a 10-year-old Camry because it's reliable and I don't need a car to define my worth. But, Patricia's perfect composure was cracking. You let me pay for this venue. You let me brag about getting it. You knew I was lying about the cancellation? Actually, I arranged the cancellation. I admitted, the previous booking was made by someone who tried to cheat me on a business deal. Petty? Yes, but it worked out for you, didn't it? You own the Rosewood? Linda's husband, Robert, had found his voice. He was a real estate developer who'd been trying to buy the property for years. Your SH Enterprises? Sterling Harper Enterprises, I confirmed. And yes, Robert, I know you've been sending offers. The answer is still no. Marcus cleared his throat. Ms. Harper, about those renovations. Not now, Marcus, I said gently. This is my sister's wedding. Whatever it is can wait until Monday. But you specifically asked to review. Monday, I repeated firmly. He nodded and retreated, leaving me surrounded by stunned relatives. Patricia looked like she'd been slapped. Her wedding planner was frantically typing on her iPad, and a small crowd of guests had gathered to watch the drama unfold. How long? Patricia asked finally. How long have you owned it? 18 months. Bought it as part of a package deal with 6 other properties. And you let me think I was getting some amazing deal? You let me patronize you about the community center? I met her gaze steadily. You've been patronizing me for 3 years, Patricia. Ever since David and I divorced and you decided that meant I was somehow lesser. Every family gathering, every phone call, every interaction has been colored by your assumption that I'm a failure. But you never said anything. Would it have mattered? You'd already decided who I was. Poor Samantha. Couldn't keep her husband. Can't afford nice things. Needs her successful sister's pity. I gestured around the venue. You never once asked why I was so calm about the divorce. Never wondered how I afforded my apartment in the most expensive part of the city. Never questioned how someone working retail could travel to Europe 4 times last year. You went to Europe? Linda asked weakly. For business. I was acquiring a boutique chain in Paris, but when I mentioned traveling, you all assumed I meant driving to the next state. Patricia's eyes were filling with tears, and I felt a pang of guilt. This was her wedding day, and I was ruining it with revelations. Look, I said more gently, this doesn't have to change anything. It's still your day. You're still marrying Charles. The only difference is now you know your venue is a family property. Family property? She laughed bitterly. You mean your property. God, do you know how this looks? How pathetic I seem. I've been bragging for months about scoring this venue, about how exclusive it is, how not everyone can afford it, and the whole time, my sister owned it? No one else knows, I pointed out. Marcus is discreet, and the staff don't gossip. Your guests don't have to know. I know, she said quietly. I know that every time I insulted you, every time I suggested you couldn't afford things, every time I made you feel small, you could have destroyed me with a single word. Why didn't you? It was a good question. Why had I let it go on so long? Because I wanted to know, I said finally, after David left me for his secretary. Yes, I know you all knew about the affair before I did. I needed to know who actually cared about me, not my money, not my connections, not what I could do for them, just me. And we failed, Patricia said, tears flowing freely now. God, we failed spectacularly. You didn't fail, I said. You just showed me who you are, and despite everything, you're still my sister. I still love you. That's why I made sure you got this venue. That's why I've been anonymously covering the cost overruns. Yes, I know about the flowers and the upgraded menu. That's why I'm here. Despite being told I'd embarrass you in front of the governor. The governor, Robert said suddenly. He's here because of you, isn't he? Not because of Charles's connections. I shrugged. He's a family friend. He stays at my hotels when he travels. Hotels? Linda squeaked. Plural? Can we not do this now? I asked. Patricia, you have 300 guests waiting to watch you get married. Go fix your makeup, marry Charles, and have the wedding of your dreams. We can deal with family drama tomorrow. She stared at me for a long moment, mascara running down her cheeks. How can you be so calm about this? I've been horrible to you. You've been exactly who I expected you to be, I said. That's why it didn't hurt as much as you think. Now go. Your wedding planner looks like she's about to have an aneurysm. Patricia surprised me by pulling me into a hug. Designer dress be damned. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I know, I whispered back. Now go get married. And Patricia? The honeymoon suite upgrade isn't from Charles. It's your real wedding gift from me. She pulled back, laughing through her tears. The Imperial Suite? That's $5,000 a night. $6,000. Actually, I raised the prices last month. I smiled. Owner's prerogative. The wedding proceeded beautifully after that. Patricia managed to repair her makeup and marry Charles under the rose arbor I'd had installed just 2 months prior. The governor gave a lovely toast, carefully not mentioning that he'd known me since I was in diapers. The food was exquisite. I'd hired the chef personally. During the reception, family members approached me one by one, each with their own mixture of apology, curiosity, and calculation. Some genuinely seemed remorseful. Others were clearly already planning how to leverage our relationship. So, Uncle Pete said, sliding into the seat next to me during the dessert course, I've got this investment opportunity. No, I said pleasantly. You didn't let me finish. I don't need to. The answer is no. He deflated slightly. Because of how we treated you? Because you only see me as a bank account now, I said. Before, I was poor Samantha. Now I'm rich Samantha. Either way, I'm not just Samantha to you. That's not fair, isn't it? I gestured around the room. Look at Linda over there, already on her phone, probably Googling my net worth. Robert's been texting his business partners about SH Enterprises. Aunt Martha is calculating how this affects her social standing. The only person not treating me differently is the one person who didn't know me before. I nodded toward Charles, Patricia's new husband, who'd taken the revelation in stride and simply said, "Cool, can we get a family discount for anniversary parties?" Uncle Pete had the grace to look ashamed. We really are shallow, aren't we? You're human, I corrected, but so am I. And I deserved better than being dismissed because my marriage failed and I chose to live quietly. As the evening wound down, Patricia found me on the terrace, looking out over the gardens I'd spent a fortune restoring. It's beautiful, she said, joining me at the railing. Everything's beautiful, and I almost didn't invite you, but you did. Only because Mom would have killed me if I hadn't. She laughed bitterly. God, I'm still doing it, still being horrible. You're being honest, I said. That's an improvement. We stood in silence for a moment, watching guests dance under the string lights I'd had specially installed. What happens now? She asked. Do we pretend this didn't happen? Go back to you being poor Samantha and me being the sister who married well? I suggested. We can't go back, Patricia, but maybe we can go forward. Maybe start with treating each other like actual people instead of caricatures. I'd like that, she said softly. And Samantha? Next time I get married. Next time? I interrupted, laughing. You just got married. I'm being optimistic. She grinned. Next time, you're maid of honor, and we're having it somewhere you don't own, so there are no surprises. Deal, I said, though I should probably mention I'm in escrow on 3 more properties. Of course you are. She shook her head. My sister, the secret real estate mogul. Mom's going to have a heart attack when she finds out. She already knows, I said. Who do you think told me about your wedding date before you sent the invitation? Patricia's mouth fell open. Mom knew? Where do you think I get my strategic planning skills from? I winked. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. As we headed back inside, Patricia stopped me. Sam, the community center comment. I really am sorry about that. Don't be, I said. I actually donated enough to renovate their event space last year. It's quite nice now. Not rosewood nice, but nice. Of course you did. She linked her arm through mine. Is there anywhere in this state you don't secretly own or fund? A few places, I admitted, but give me time. We rejoined the reception just as Charles was preparing to toss the bouquet. Patricia grabbed it from him. "Change of plans," she announced. "This bouquet goes to my sister, who's already caught enough curveballs today." She handed it to me directly, ignoring the protests from the single women who'd gathered. "For when you're ready to try again," she said quietly, "and this time, we'll make sure he's worthy of you." I accepted the bouquet, touched despite myself. "No more community center recommendations? Are you kidding?" She grinned. "I'm recommending the Rosewood. I hear the owner gives family discounts." As the night ended and guests began departing, I stood in the entrance of my own venue, watching my family see me with new eyes. Some would only ever see dollar signs now, others might actually see me. But for the first time in 3 years, I was just Samantha Harper, not the divorced failure or the secret millionaire, just a woman who'd learned that sometimes you have to let people underestimate you to find out who's worth overestimating. Marcus appeared at my elbow. "Successful evening, Miss Harper?" "Very," I said, "though I think we'll need to review those staff protocols. A little too much recognition for someone trying to stay incognito." He winced. "My deepest apologies. Shall I arrange for—" "Marcus," I interrupted, "it's fine. Actually, it's better than fine. Sometimes the truth needs a push to come out." "Very philosophical, ma'am. Wedding receptions make me contemplative," I said. "That, and the champagne." As the valet brought my 10-year-old Camry around, parked, I noted with amusement. Between a Lamborghini and a Bentley, Patricia ran out one last time. "Same car?" she asked. "Same car," I confirmed. "Some things are worth keeping, even when you can afford better." "Like family?" "Especially family," I agreed. "Even the ones who suggest community centers." She laughed, hugging me one more time. "I love you, you know, even if I've been terrible at showing it." "I know," I said. "Why else would I let you have your wedding at my favorite property?" As I drove away from the Rosewood, I thought about the evening's revelations. Tomorrow, my phone would be full of messages from family members suddenly interested in reconnecting. There would be awkward conversations, probably some requests for money, definitely some resentment. But tonight, I'd watched my sister get married in a venue I'd lovingly restored, surrounded by beauty I'd created, even if she hadn't known it, and in the end, that was worth more than maintaining any secret. Though I was definitely keeping the Camry. Some things were too much fun to give up.
The old grandfather clock in the lawyer's office struck 3 as Mr. Patterson shuffled through my grandfather's will. My brother Michael sat across from me in his perfectly tailored suit, already wearing the smug expression of someone who knew he'd won. Next to him, my sister Catherine examined her manicure, barely containing her impatience. I'm Hannah Miller, the youngest of 3 siblings, and according to my family, the least successful. While Michael ran his investment firm and Catherine managed her luxury real estate business, I had chosen to study environmental science and sustainable agriculture, choices that had made me the family disappointment. Now then, Mr. Patterson adjusted his reading glasses to the matter of distributing Harold Miller's estate. I caught my reflection in the office window, simple blouse, practical pants, work boots still muddy from my morning at the research center. Next to my polished siblings, I looked exactly like what they thought I was, the family failure. To my grandson Michael Miller, Mr. Patterson read, I leave my investment portfolio, valued at approximately $4 million. Michael's smile widened. No surprise there. He'd been managing those investments for years, carefully positioning himself as the responsible grandchild. To my granddaughter, Catherine Miller, I leave my properties in the city, including the apartment building on 5th Avenue and the commercial space in Brooklyn. Catherine finally looked up from her nails, nodding in satisfaction. The properties were worth at least $6 million. And to my granddaughter, Hannah Miller, Mr. Patterson paused, glancing at me over his glasses. I leave the family farm in Millbrook, including all land, structures, and equipment thereon. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before Michael burst out laughing. The farm, he wheezed, wiping tears from his eyes. That worthless piece of dirt? Oh, this is perfect. Catherine joined in with her theatrical giggle. Well, It makes sense. Hannah's always been interested in playing in the mud. Now she can do it full time. I sat there, my face burning, but my voice steady. Are there any conditions attached to the inheritance? Mr. Patterson nodded, relieved to have a serious question. Only that the property cannot be sold for at least 1 year after taking possession. Michael's laughter redoubled. 1 year? You'll be broke by then. That place hasn't turned a profit in decades. The property taxes alone will bankrupt you. Enjoy your worthless farm. Catherine stood up, already reaching for her designer handbag. Maybe you can grow organic kale or whatever it is you studied in college. I remained seated as they strutted out, still laughing. Mr. Patterson waited until their voices faded before speaking again. There's one more thing, Miss Miller. Your grandfather left this for you. He handed me an envelope, my name written in Grandpa's shaky handwriting. He was very specific that you should receive it only after the others had left. I opened the letter carefully, recognizing the paper from Grandpa's old desk. Dearest Hannah, by now you know about the farm. Your brother and sister will think I'm punishing you, but they never understood what that land really means. They see dirt and crops and outdated buildings. But you've always seen the potential in things others dismiss. Remember the stories I used to tell you about the old barn? About why it was built where it was, and what lies beneath? It's time for you to find out if those stories were true. The key in this envelope opens the locked cabinet in my study. Inside, you'll find everything you need to understand. Trust yourself, little one. You're the only one who can unlock what that farm really holds. All my love, Grandpa. A small brass key fell from the envelope into my palm. I looked up at Mr. Patterson, who was watching me with curious eyes. Did you know about this? He shook his head. Your grandfather was a private man, especially in his later years. But he always spoke highly of you. Said you had a gift for seeing value where others couldn't. That evening, I drove out to the farm alone. The spring sunset painted the old buildings in shades of gold, making the weathered wood glow. I'd always loved this place, spent countless summers here helping Grandpa with the horses and listening to his stories. The study was exactly as he left it. Books everywhere, maps spread across the desk, his old leather chair still holding the impression of his favorite reading position. The locked cabinet stood in the corner, untouched since his passing 3 months ago. The key fit perfectly. Inside, I found a stack of notebooks, geological surveys, and maps. Decades of research and observations. But it was the small leather-bound journal on top that caught my attention. The first entry, dated 1962, made my heart stop. Today, I confirmed what I've suspected for years. The geological formations under the North Barn aren't natural. The core samples show clear signs of mineral deposits, but that's not all. The radiation reading suggests something far more valuable. I can't risk anyone finding out until I'm certain, but if I'm right, this farm sits on top of one of the largest rare earth element deposits in North America. I sank into Grandpa's chair, my hands shaking as I turned the pages. For decades, he had secretly studied the land, gathering evidence of what lay beneath the surface. The barn had been built specifically to hide his test sites, its location chosen not for farming convenience, but to mark the center of something extraordinary. The final entry was dated just 2 weeks before his death. Hannah will find this. She's the only one who ever really listened, who understood that this land holds more than just crops. Michael and Catherine want quick profits and easy money. They'll never have the patience to discover what's beneath their feet. But Hannah, she has my curiosity, my determination. She'll know what to do with this knowledge. I stayed up all night, reading through the journals and studying the maps. By sunrise, I knew two things with absolute certainty. My grandfather had been right about the mineral deposits, and I was holding information worth millions, possibly billions, of dollars. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Hope you're enjoying the dirt farm. Let me know when you're ready to sell it cheap. I might know some developers who take it off your hands." I smiled, looking out over the misty fields toward the old barn. "No thanks," I typed back. "I think I'll hang on to it for a while." If only he knew what was really hidden beneath that worthless dirt. The first thing I did was call Dr. Sarah Chen, my former professor and mentor in environmental science. If anyone could help me confirm Grandpa's discovery without drawing attention, it would be her. "Rare earth elements?" she said, examining the geological surveys spread across the barn's work table. "Your grandfather was tracking these patterns for decades. The man was brilliant." I nodded, pointing to the most recent readings. "He used old equipment, but the signatures are clear. I think there's a massive deposit under this entire northern section." Sarah walked the perimeter of the barn, her instruments beeping steadily. "Hannah, if these readings are accurate, this isn't just a deposit. This could be one of the largest rare earth element finds in the country. Do you understand what that means?" I did. Rare earth elements were crucial for everything from smartphones to electric vehicles to military technology. China controlled most of the world's supply, making any significant domestic source invaluable. "We need to confirm this properly," Sarah said, already making calls. "I know some people who can help," discreetly. Over the next few weeks, a small team of trusted geologists conducted comprehensive surveys of the property. They worked at night, using advanced equipment that would have seemed like science fiction to Grandpa, but their findings confirmed what he had suspected all along. The deposit extends at least 300 acres, Dr. Chen explained, showing me the 3D imaging. Preliminary estimates suggest over 100,000 metric tons of extractable rare earth elements. At current market prices, that's billions. I finished quietly. "Not millions, billions." She nodded. "And given the growing demand for these elements, the value will only increase. But Hannah, you need to be careful. Once this gets out." She didn't need to finish. I knew what would happen. My phone was already buzzing with increasingly frequent messages from my siblings. Word had gotten around that there was unusual activity at the farm. "Hey sis," Catherine's text dripped with fake sweetness. "Just checking in. How's the farming going? You know, if you need help with property taxes or anything." Michael was more direct. "Heard you've had some scientists out there. What's going on?" As your financially responsible brother, I should be involved in any decisions about the property. I ignored them both, focusing instead on the next crucial step. I needed capital to develop the discovery, but I had to move carefully. If word got out too soon, every mining company in the country would be trying to take control. That's when I got lucky. Through Sarah's connections, I met James Wong, a venture capitalist who specialized in mineral resources. More importantly, he understood the need for discretion. "The potential here is unprecedented," he said, walking the property with me. "But extraction needs to be done sustainably, carefully. Many of these deposits have been ruined by hasty development." I liked him immediately. He asked about environmental impact before profit margins, and he actually listened to my ideas about sustainable mining practices. "I can provide initial funding," he offered, "enough to secure the necessary permits and begin preliminary development. In return, my firm gets a minority stake, but you maintain controlling interest. It was a fair offer, better than fair. But before I could accept, my siblings forced my hand. I came home one evening to find Michael's expensive car in the driveway. He and Catherine were waiting on the porch, trying to look concerned, but barely concealing their greed. "Hannah, we need to talk," Michael began, using his responsible big brother voice. "We're worried about you." "Really?" I leaned against the porch railing. "You haven't been worried about me for the past 10 years. Catherine stepped forward, all designer clothes and fake sympathy. "We know you've been meeting with investors. You can't handle something like that alone. You need our expertise." "Like you handled Grandpa's investments?" I asked sweetly. "The ones that underperformed the market by 40% under your management, Michael." His face reddened. "That's not. How did you know about that?" "I actually read his financial records, unlike you. Just like I read everything else he left behind." "Look," Catherine cut in, "whatever you found out here, you need help developing it. We have connections, experience." "No," I said firmly. "What you have is regret. You mocked this farm, called it worthless. Now you suspect it might be valuable, and suddenly you want to be involved." Michael's fake concern vanished. "We're your family. We have a right to be part of this." "Family?" I laughed. "When was the last time either of you visited Grandpa? Do you even know what crops he grew here? What he was passionate about?" They exchanged guilty glances. "I'll make this simple," I continued. "This is my inheritance. Grandpa gave it to me because he knew I would understand its true value, not just its monetary worth. You want to know what I've found? Wait and read about it in the papers like everyone else." "You'll regret this," Michael threatened. "We can make things very difficult for you." I stepped closer, meeting his eyes. "No, Michael, you can't, because unlike you, I actually learned from Grandpa. I learned how to protect what's valuable, how to plan for the long term. You want to cause trouble? Go ahead. But remember, I have all of Grandpa's records, including some very interesting notes about your investment practices." Catherine grabbed Michael's arm as he started to sputter. "Come on," she muttered. "This isn't over, Hannah." I watched them drive away, their expensive car kicking up dust on the dirt road. Then I called James Wong. "I'll take your offer," I said. "But I want to add something to the contract. A clause that specifically prevents any shares from being sold to members of my family." He chuckled. "Already done. Your grandfather warned me about them years ago." I nearly dropped the phone. You knew my grandfather?" "Who do you think helped him confirm his initial findings? Harold and I were old friends. He made me promise to look out for you when the time came." Tears filled my eyes as I looked out over the farm, my farm. Even now, Grandpa was still protecting me, still guiding my path. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Environmental impact studies, permit applications, mineral rights registrations. Through it all, I could feel my siblings watching, plotting. But I had something they didn't: patience, just like Grandpa. Then came the day I had been both anticipating and dreading. The official announcement of the discovery was about to go public, and with it, the true value of my worthless farm would be revealed to the world. I sat in Grandpa's study, reading the press release one final time. Tomorrow, everyone would know that the Miller farm sat on top of one of the largest rare earth element deposits ever discovered in North America. Tomorrow, my siblings would learn exactly what they had mocked and lost. But tonight, in the quiet of the evening, I reread Grandpa's journal one more time. Remember, Hannah, true value isn't just in what you find, it's in how you use it. make me proud. I would, Grandpa. I would. The morning the news broke, I woke up early to watch the sunrise from Grandpa's old porch swing. The farmhouse was quiet, but I knew the peace wouldn't last. Headlines were already flashing across financial news networks. Massive rare earth element deposit discovered in New York. Miller Farm find could worry HAP global mineral market. Domestic rare earth elements. A $100 billion game CHANGR. My phone started ringing at exactly 7:01 a.m. Michael, of course. Is it true? He demanded, not bothering with a greeting. The farm, the minerals, all of it. Good morning to you too, Michael. I kept my voice calm. Yes, it's all true. Grandpa discovered it years ago. He just needed someone patient enough to understand its value. You have to let us in on this, he said quickly. The family needs to be involved. We have connections, experience. Like your experience in calling it a worthless dirt farm. I cut him off. Or Catherine's expertise in mocking my career choices. That kind of valuable experience. Before he could respond, another call beeped through. Catherine. Then another, our parents. Then the local news stations, investment firms, mining companies. Everyone wanted a piece of what they had all dismissed just months ago. I let most of them go to voicemail, but I did take one call from Mr. Patterson, Grandpa's lawyer. Your grandfather would be proud, he said warmly. He always said you were the only one who truly understood the value of patience. Around noon, a sleek black car pulled into the driveway. Michael and Catherine stepped out, both dressed for business, both wearing their most convincing smiles. Hannah, Catherine called out, walking toward the porch. We've been trying to reach you all morning. I stayed in my seat, noting how strange they looked here. Designer clothes against the backdrop of weathered barnwood and growing crops. Whatever you're here to propose, I said quietly, the answer is no. Michael stepped forward, straightening his tie. Just hear us out. We've already spoken to some investors. Major mining companies are interested. We could turn this into billions. I already have, I interrupted, pulling out the latest valuation report. The preliminary estimates were conservative. With sustainable extraction methods and proper development, the deposits are worth close to $100 billion. They both froze, their faces paling as the number sank in. But how? Catherine stammered. You can't have arranged all this alone. Actually, I did. Well, with help from the people Grandpa trusted, not the family who ignored him. I stood up, facing them directly. Did you know he spent his last years studying geology? That he took night classes to understand mineral analysis? Of course not, because neither of you visited him unless you needed something. That's not fair, Michael protested weakly. No. When was the last time you asked him about his life? His interests? His dreams for this land? I walked to the porch railing, gesturing at the farm around us. You saw dirt and crops and worthless space. He saw the future, and he made sure it went to someone who would see it too. Catherine's composure finally cracked. You can't just cut us out. We're family. Family? I turned back to them, my voice sharp. Let me show you something. I led them into Grandpa's study, where I'd laid out his journals and notes. Decades of research, observations, and plans, all meticulously documented. He knew about this deposit for years, I explained. But he also knew that if he announced it too soon, it would be exploited wrongly. The land would be stripped, the environment destroyed, all for quick profit. So he waited, and he watched. I opened one journal to a marked page. He watched how Michael managed his investments, always looking for fast returns, never thinking long-term. He saw how Catherine treated her real estate clients, squeezing every dollar without concern for community impact. Their faces reddened as I continued, and he watched me, studying environmental science, learning about sustainable development, understanding that true value isn't just about money. So this was his revenge. Michael's voice was bitter, punishing us by giving everything to you. No, I shook my head. This was his legacy. He gave the farm to the person who would develop it responsibly, who would use its resources to do more than just get rich. I handed them each a folder. Inside, you'll find the preliminary plans for the Miller Sustainable Development Project, a rare earth element extraction operation that will set new standards for environmental protection, a research center for developing green mining technologies, a foundation to fund scientific education. They flipped through the papers silently as I continued. This isn't just about mining minerals. It's about changing how we think about resource development. And yes, it will make billions, but those billions will do more than just make us rich. Catherine looked up, tears in her eyes. We really never knew him, did we? No, I said softly. You never tried. Michael was still staring at the plans. These are impressive. The technology, the environmental protections. This could revolutionize the entire industry. That's what Grandpa wanted. I nodded. He used to say that true wealth isn't what you take from the land, it's what you give back to it. They stayed quiet for a long moment, finally seeing the farm, and our grandfather, through new eyes. So what now? Catherine finally asked. Where do we fit in? I took a deep breath. That depends on you. I'm establishing a board of directors to oversee the foundation's charitable work. There are seats available, but they come with conditions. What conditions? Michael asked cautiously. You have to earn them. Spend a year working in environmental conservation. Learn about sustainable development. Prove that you understand what Grandpa was trying to build here. Then we can talk. To my surprise, they both nodded slowly. He really was brilliant, wasn't he? Catherine said quietly, looking around the study. We just couldn't see it. As they left that evening, the sunset painted the old barn in shades of gold, just like it had the day I first discovered Grandpa's secret. But now the barn wasn't hiding anything. Instead, it stood as a monument to patience, to vision, and to understanding that true value often lies beneath the surface. The next few years transformed more than just the farm. The Miller Sustainable Development Project became a model for responsible resource extraction worldwide. The research center attracted scientists from around the globe. The foundation funded scholarships for students studying environmental science and sustainable technology. Michael and Catherine did eventually earn their board seats, though the process changed them more than they expected. Working in conservation taught them what Grandpa had always known, that real wealth isn't just about money. As for me, I still live in the farmhouse, watching crops grow alongside our sustainable mining operation. Sometimes, in the quiet of evening, I sit in Grandpa's study and read his journals, finding new wisdom in his words. Remember, Hannah, he wrote in his final entry, the greatest inheritance I can leave you isn't the minerals under this farm. It's the understanding that true value lies in what you create, what you protect, and what you pass on to future generations. He was right, as always. The The farm's secret wasn't just the rare earth elements hidden beneath the soil. The real secret was learning to see value where others saw nothing, and having the patience to develop that value responsibly. Now, when people call the farm worthless, I just smile. Because I know that true worth isn't always visible on the surface. Sometimes you have to dig deeper, be patient, and trust that what others dismiss as worthless might just turn out to be the most valuable thing of all. I never planned to keep my success a secret. But after a decade of watching my family mock my career choices while living in my private penthouse overlooking Central Park, I had grown accustomed to the irony of it all. My name is Olivia Winters, though the business world knows me only as O.W. Blackwood, the reclusive founder and CEO of Blackwood Innovations. To my family, I'm just their disappointing middle child who wastes her time with freelance tech consulting instead of joining the family law firm. The day everything changed started like any other. I was reviewing acquisition reports in my private office on the top floor of Blackwood Tower when my assistant, Michael, rushed in with an unusual expression on his face. "Ms. Winters, you need to see these job applications," he said, placing a tablet in front of me. They just came through HR. I glanced at the screen and nearly choked on my coffee. There, in pristine digital formatting, were the resumes of my sister Diane and my brother James. Both had applied for executive positions at Blackwood Innovations. "There's more," Michael added, scrolling to another document. "Your father's law firm is also pitching their services to our legal department. The meeting is scheduled for next week." I leaned back in my chair, memories flooding back from 10 years ago. I was fresh out of college with a computer science degree, pitching my ideas for revolutionary software architecture to my family over dinner. "Tech startups are a dime a dozen," my father had scoffed, barely looking up from his legal briefs. "Winters and Associates has been a respected law firm for 3 generations. That's real success, not this coding nonsense." Diane, 2 years older and already a junior partner at the firm, had smirked. "Come on, Dad. Let her play with her computers. She can always come work as our IT support when she fails." Only my younger brother James had shown any interest, but even that was condescending. "Maybe you could build us a better website for the firm," he had suggested, as if that was the height of technological achievement. I left that dinner knowing I would never convince them to see my vision. So I stopped trying. Instead, I took my savings, borrowed against my trust fund, and started working in absolute secrecy. The first few years were brutal. I worked out of a tiny apartment, taking legitimate freelance jobs while building my company on the side. Every family gathering became an exercise in restraint as they pitied my struggling career. "Still doing that freelance thing?" became their constant refrain, always tinged with mock concern and real condescension. What they didn't know was that my freelance thing was a cover for building one of the most innovative software companies in the world. Blackwood Innovations revolutionized enterprise architecture, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence. By the 5th year, we were valued at over $2 billion. By the 8th year, we had gone public, and my personal worth exceeded the combined value of every law firm in New York. Through it all, I maintained my cover. I kept my small apartment for family visits. Though I lived in a penthouse, I drove an old Honda to family functions, while my collection of luxury cars sat in a private garage. I endured their pitying looks while donating more to charity each year than their firm made in profit. Now, staring at their job applications, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to reject them immediately, to let them feel a fraction of the dismissal they had shown me. but another part saw an opportunity for something more satisfying. "Michael," I said finally, "schedule the interviews. But don't conduct them in the executive suite. Use the small conference room on the 15th floor." He raised an eyebrow. "The one we use for junior positions?" "Exactly. And don't tell them anything about meeting with O.W. Blackwood. Let them think they're interviewing with middle management." After Michael left, I opened my laptop and began researching my siblings' recent careers. Diane had left our father's firm 2 years ago after a failed attempt to modernize their practice. James had bounced between several firms, never quite living up to our father's expectations. Now they both wanted to join the tech world they had once mocked. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. "Hey sis, I just applied to this amazing tech company. Put in a good word if you know anyone there." I smiled at the irony. For 10 years, she had never once asked about my work or shown any interest in tech. Now that she needed something, suddenly my connections mattered. "I'll see what I can do," I replied, knowing that tomorrow would change everything. That evening, I stood in my penthouse, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold. On my desk sat an old photo from my college graduation, the last time my family had shown any real pride in me. Even then, it was tempered with concern about my impractical career choice. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Winters, your siblings' interviews are scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Your father's law firm pitch is set for 2 p.m. Are you sure about this?" I thought about all the family dinners where I sat quietly while they bragged about their legal victories. All the holidays where they treated me like a cautionary tale. All the times they could have supported me, but chose to judge instead. "Yes, Michael, I'm sure. Tomorrow, the Winters family will finally learn what real success looks like." I picked up the photo, studying my younger self's hopeful expression. Back then, I had wanted so desperately to prove myself to them. Now, I realized that the person I really needed to prove myself to was me. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, taking my private elevator to the 15th floor. The small conference room had been prepared exactly as I requested. Simple furnishings, no view of the city, nothing to suggest the true power of Blackwood innovations. Through the security feed, I watched my siblings arrive separately in the lobby. Diane wore an expensive suit, her confidence evident in every movement. James looked more nervous, constantly adjusting his tie. They were escorted to the 15th floor, neither of them realizing that their supposedly struggling sister was watching from the executive suite above, about to change their world forever. Through the security monitors, I watched my siblings sit nervously in the small conference room. Diane kept checking her reflection in her compact mirror, while James drummed his fingers on the table. Neither of them had any idea that their lives were about to change completely. "Send in the first interviewer," I instructed Michael through my earpiece. Right on cue, Sarah Chen, my chief technology officer, entered the room. I had chosen her specifically because she was young, female, and brilliant. Everything my siblings had dismissed throughout my career. "Good morning," Sarah said, sitting down with their resumes. "I'm conducting initial interviews for Blackwood Innovations. Let's start with your technical backgrounds." Diane straightened in her chair, adopting the confident pose she perfected in courtrooms. "While I don't have direct tech experience, I've overseen several digital transformation projects at law firms." "Really?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Could you elaborate on the technical aspects of those projects?" I watched Diane flounder, trying to mask her lack of knowledge with legal jargon. James wasn't doing much better. His claims of understanding the tech industry falling apart under Sarah's precise questioning. After 20 excruciating minutes, Sarah thanked them and left. My siblings exchanged worried glances, their confidence visibly shaken. "Send in round 2, I instructed. This time, it was Marcus Rodriguez, my head of innovation. He began asking about their views on emerging technologies, cryptocurrency, and artificial intelligence. Their answers were painfully outdated, filled with buzzwords, but lacking any real understanding. "Is this a joke?" Diane finally snapped, her frustration breaking through. "We're here to interview for executive positions, not tech support. Where is Otagu Blackwood? We should be meeting with actual decision makers." Marcus kept his expression neutral, though I could see him fighting back a smile. "Ms. Winters, I assure you this is standard procedure. However, if you prefer to leave—" "No," James cut in quickly. "We apologize. Please continue." 3 more interviewers followed, each one expertly exposing my siblings' lack of qualifications. By the final round, both Diane and James looked thoroughly defeated. "Ms. Winters," Michael's voice came through my earpiece, "your father's team has arrived for the legal services pitch." "Perfect timing," I smiled. "Have them wait in the main conference room. I'll handle this personally." I took my private elevator down to the 15th floor, smoothing my designer suit and checking my reflection. 10 years of hiding my success had led to this moment. The door to the small conference room opened, and I walked in. The look on my siblings' faces was priceless: confusion, then shock, then dawning horror as they realized what was happening. "Olivia?" Diane stammered. "What are you doing here?" "We're in the middle of interviews." "Actually," I said, taking a seat at the head of the table, "you're at the end of your interviews, and they haven't gone well." James leaned forward, his face flushing. "What do you mean?" "How would you know?" "Because I own this company." I cut him off calmly. "I am Otagu Blackwood." The silence that followed was deafening. Diane's mouth opened and closed without sound. James gripped the table edge so hard his knuckles turned white. "That's impossible," Diane finally managed. "You're a freelancer. You work from coffee shops." I laughed, the sound echoing in the small room. "No, Diane. That's just what I let you believe. While you were all pitying my career choices, I was building this." I gestured around us. "Blackwood Innovations, a Fortune 500 company worth more than every law firm in New York combined." But James was struggling to form words. "All these years?" "Yes," I nodded. "All these years, while you mocked my coding nonsense and offered me IT support jobs, I was revolutionizing enterprise software. While you bragged about your legal victories at family dinners, I was closing billion-dollar deals. While you dismissed me as a failure, I became one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs in the world." Diane's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Why should I have? When did any of you ever show genuine interest in my work? When did you ever offer support instead of condescension?" I pulled out their resumes, laying them on the table. "And now here you are, applying for jobs at my company. Not because you're qualified. These interviews have proven you're not. But because you heard Blackwood Innovations was the next big thing." "Olivia, please," James started, but I held up my hand. "I'm not finished. Right now, our father is waiting upstairs to pitch his firm's legal services. He has no idea he's about to try to sell to his own daughter, the one he said would never amount to anything in tech." I stood up, smoothing my skirt. I have a meeting to attend. Michael will show you out. Oh, and don't bother waiting for callbacks about the jobs. You're not qualified. As I reached the door, Diane called out, her voice shaking. You can't just leave it like this. I turned back, meeting her eyes. Actually, I can. I spent 10 years letting you all believe what you wanted about me. Now you get to live with the truth. And believe me, this is just the beginning. Walking away from that conference room, I felt lighter than I had in years. But my day wasn't over yet. My father was waiting upstairs, about to experience his own moment of revelation. The best part, he had no idea what was coming. The executive conference room of Blackwood Tower offered a stunning view of Manhattan's skyline. My father, Richard Winters, stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, his back straight and proud as always. He was surrounded by 3 junior partners from his firm, all of them clutching presentation materials and practicing their best corporate smiles. I watched them through the glass wall for a moment, remembering all the times I'd stood in his office as a child, dreaming of making him proud. Now, standing in my own tower, I realized those dreams had changed. I no longer needed his pride. I had my own. Miss Blackwood is ready for you, Michael announced, opening the door. My father turned, his practiced smile freezing as I walked in. For a moment, confusion crossed his face. Then shock. Then disbelief. Olivia, he stammered. What are you doing here? I sat down at the head of the conference table, enjoying the moment. Hello, Dad. I believe you're here to pitch legal services to Blackwood Innovations. The junior partners exchanged bewildered looks. One of them quickly flipped through his notes, probably wondering if they'd somehow missed this connection in their research. I don't understand, my father said, still standing. We have a meeting with LW Blackwood. Yes, I smiled. You do. Please, sit down. Realization dawned slowly on his face as he sank into a chair. You're LW Blackwood? Yes, founder and CEO of Blackwood Innovations. The company you're so eager to represent. I turned to the junior partners. I apologize, but this meeting needs to be private. Family matter. They practically ran from the room, leaving me alone with my father. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. How? He finally managed. How did I build a multi-billion-dollar tech company while you thought I was struggling? Or how did I keep it secret from a family of supposedly brilliant lawyers? Both, he whispered. I leaned back in my chair. I built it the same way I tried to tell you I would, 10 years ago at that dinner. Remember? When you said tech startups were a dime a dozen. He flinched at the memory. As for keeping it secret, I continued, that was surprisingly easy. You were all so convinced I was a failure that you never bothered to look closer. Did you know Blackwood Innovations has been featured in Forbes 12 times? That I've been on CNBC. That our IPO was the biggest tech offering of the decade. But your apartment, your car, props, I said simply. I kept them to maintain the illusion you all preferred. The struggling daughter who couldn't match up to her sibling's success. My father's face had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Diane and James, they applied for jobs here. Yes, they did. They just finished their interviews, in fact. It didn't go well. He straightened in his chair, some of his old authority returning. Now see here, Olivia. They're your family. Surely you cold. Could what, Dad? I cut him off. Give them jobs they're not qualified for. Like you offered me that 8 support position at your firm? I pulled out his firm's proposal. Or should I just hire your firm because we're family? Is that how you think business works? That's not fair, he protested weakly. No. What's not fair is spending a decade dismissing your daughter's dreams and abilities because they didn't match your narrow definition of success. I stood up, walking to the windows. Look at this building, Dad. Look at what I'd built while you were telling everyone I was wasting my potential. He joined me at the window, his reflection showing a mix of emotions I'd never seen before: shame, regret, and something that might have been pride. Why tell us now? He asked quietly. Because it was time. Because I'm tired of maintaining the lie. And because I turned to face him. I wanted you all to learn an important lesson about judging people. And have we learned it? A hint of his old sarcasm crept into his voice. I don't know, Dad. Have you? Your children just applied for jobs at a tech company you said would never succeed. Your firm is pitching services to the daughter you said would never amount to anything. What do you think? He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city. Finally, he turned to me. I was wrong about you, Olivia. I've been wrong for a very long time. Yes, you have. I walked back to my desk and pressed the intercom. Michael, please show Mr. Winters out. And cancel all his firm's future appointments with us. Wait, my father said quickly. You're not even going to consider our proposal. I met his eyes steadily. No, Dad. Just like you never really considered my ideas or potential. The difference is, I'm making this decision based on business merit, not personal bias. As he reached the door, he paused. What happens now? With the family? That depends on all of you. I'm done hiding my success, done playing the role of the disappointing daughter. If you want a relationship with me now, it will have to be on different terms. After he left, I sat in my office watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold. My phone had been buzzing continuously. Messages from my mother, my siblings, even distant relatives who had somehow already heard the news. I opened one from Diane. I'm so sorry. For everything. Can we talk? Then one from James. I understand now why you kept it secret. I wouldn't have trusted us either. Finally, one from my father. You've built something remarkable. Not despite ignoring my advice, but because you had the courage to follow your own path. I'm sorry I couldn't see that sooner. I didn't respond to any of them immediately. Instead, I called Michael in. Cancel my dinner plans, I told him. I need you to set up something else. The next evening, I hosted a family dinner in my penthouse, my real home, not the small apartment I'd used as a cover. They arrived one by one, their eyes wide, as they took in the luxury they'd never known I had. Before we eat, I announced, once they were all seated, I want to make something clear. This dinner isn't about forgiveness or pretending the past didn't happen. It's about moving forward honestly. Can we do that? They nodded, looking appropriately humbled. Good, I smiled. Then let me tell you the real story of how I built Blackwood Innovations. No more secrets, no more hiding, just the truth. As I began my story, I saw something new in their eyes. Not pity, not condescension, but genuine respect. And for the first time in 10 years, I felt completely free. The next morning, I walked into my office wearing success openly. No more pretenses, no more hiding. My family had learned their lesson about underestimating people, and I had learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't proving others wrong, it's proving yourself right. The press got wind of the story, of course. Tech billionaire's secret identity revealed became the headline of the week. But I didn't care anymore. I had spent 10 years building something extraordinary while my family believed I was failing. Now they would spend the rest of their lives knowing that their biggest failure wasn't in business. It was in failing to see the success right in front of them. And that was worth more than any fortune I'd built. The Anderson manufacturing headquarters hadn't changed much since I was a little girl running through its halls. The same oak-paneled walls, the same worn marble floors, the same portrait of my grandfather hanging in the main lobby. Everything was exactly as he'd left it when he died 5 years ago. Everything except the man sitting in my grandfather's office. Marcus Sterling, my stepfather of 3 years, looked ridiculously out of place behind the massive mahogany desk. His designer suit and slicked-back hair clashed with the room's old-world dignity. He was typing something on his laptop, purposely making me wait. I cleared my throat. "You wanted to see me?" He looked up, his practiced smile not reaching his cold gray eyes. "Ah, Sophia." "Yes, please sit." I remained standing. After 6 months as head of operations, I'd learned never to give him the height advantage. "Look," he began, closing his laptop, "I've been reviewing your performance reports. They're concerning." "Concerning?" I raised an eyebrow. "Productivity is up 15% since I took over. Employee satisfaction scores are the highest they've been in a decade. Numbers can be misleading." He waved his hand dismissively. "This isn't about statistics. It's about fit." I felt my jaw tighten. Fit. Anderson Manufacturing needs strong leadership, traditional leadership, someone who understands family values. Family values? I couldn't help but laugh. "You married my mother 3 years ago, and suddenly you're an expert on our family's values." His smile vanished. "I'm CEO now, Sophia. Your mother signed over controlling interest when we married. After you convinced her, she couldn't handle running the company alone. She made the right choice." He stood up, trying to tower over me. "And now I'm making another right choice. You're fired." I didn't move. "On what grounds?" "I don't need grounds. You're not really family," he sneered. "Leave." Slowly, deliberately, I pulled out my phone. His eyes narrowed as I put it on speaker and dialed a number I knew by heart. "Harrison Industries, James Harrison speaking." "Hi, Dad," I said, watching Marcus's face. "Ready to pull our contracts?" The color drained from Marcus's face, so fast, I thought he might faint. "Dad?" he whispered. "Your father is James Harrison, CEO of Harrison Industries," I confirmed. "Our biggest client. The one responsible for 60% of Anderson Manufacturing's revenue." My father's warm chuckle came through the speaker. "Is Marcus finally figuring it out, sweetheart?" Marcus gripped the desk edge. But your last name is Anderson." "My mother's name," I explained. "She took it when she married my first stepfather, the man my grandfather chose to help run the company, the man who actually cared about its legacy." "You've been spying for Harrison Industries," he accused. "No," I said quietly. "I've been protecting my grandfather's company from you." I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick file, dropping it on his desk. The thud echoed in the suddenly silent room. 3 years of evidence, I continued. Every shady deal, every stolen penny, every creative accounting trick. Did you really think nobody would notice the offshore accounts? The mysterious consulting fees? The stripped assets? "You can't prove anything," he said, but his voice shook. "Actually," my father's voice came through clearly, "she can. Sophia has been officially working as Harrison Industries compliance officer for the past 2 years. Everything she documented is legally obtained evidence. Marcus lunged for his computer, probably to start deleting files. "Don't bother," I said. "The SEC already has copies." His face went from white to green. "You'll destroy the company." "No, Marcus. You tried to destroy the company. I'm saving it." I picked up my phone. "Dad, initiate Protocol 7. "With pleasure," my father replied. "Marcus, Harrison Industries is hereby terminating all contracts with Anderson Manufacturing, effective immediately. The penalties for early termination will be enforced in full." Marcus slumped in his chair. "That'll bankrupt us." "Yes," I agreed. Unless what?" I sat down in one of the leather chairs facing the desk, my grandfather's chairs, which Marcus had tried to replace until I intervened. "Unless you sign everything back to its rightful owner. Right now." "Your mother." "No," I cut him off. "Not Mom. She trusted you, and you betrayed that trust. I mean me." I pulled out another document, transfer of ownership papers my lawyers had prepared weeks ago. "Sign this, and Harrison Industries will maintain modified contracts, enough to keep the company afloat. Refuse, and we pull everything. Your choice." His hand shook as he reached for a pen. "You planned this. Since the day you fired Thomas from accounting for questioning your expense reports. Or when you laid off Maria from manufacturing because she remembered how Grandpa used to run things. The board won't stand for this," he threatened weakly. I smiled. "The board meeting is in an hour. Would you like to know what else is in that file? Like how you've been paying their children consulting fees through shell companies." The pen scratched across paper as he signed. "Your mother will never forgive you. He tried one last time." "Mom?" I glanced at my watch. "She's having breakfast with my father right now. Turns out they had a lot to catch up on, especially about her current husband's activities." The sound of footsteps in the hallway grew louder. Right on schedule. "Those would be the FBI agents," I said, standing. "Don't worry. They're not here for the company. Just you." He looked up, desperate. "How long? How long have you been planning this?" I walked to the door, pausing to look at my grandfather's portrait on the wall. "Since the day you walked into this office thinking you could steal my grandfather's legacy." I turned back to him. "You were right about one thing, Marcus. I'm not family. I'm something much more dangerous. I'm my grandfather's heir, and I'd protect what's mine." The FBI agents entered as I stepped aside. "Oh, and Marcus, clean out your desk. You're fired." The morning after Marcus's arrest, I arrived at Anderson Manufacturing before sunrise. The early light cast long shadows through the factory windows as I walked the production floor, running my hand along the machines I'd grown up learning about. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since last night. News of Marcus's arrest had spread fast in our small business community. But one message caught my attention, from his son, Jack Sterling. "You'll regret this. Family meeting, 9 a.m., main conference room. Be there." I smiled. Jack had always been as subtle as his father. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked into the conference room wearing my grandfather's old leather jacket over a crisp business suit. Jack was there with his sister Emma, both looking like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. Their lawyer, Harrison Peters, sat between them with a smug expression. "Glad you could join us," Jack sneered. "We have some things to discuss." I sat down at the head of the table, my grandfather's old spot. "Make it quick. I have a company to run." Emma slammed a folder onto the table. "You mean our company. Dad's shares transfer to us upon any interruption in his leadership. Interesting theory. I opened my laptop. But incorrect. Their lawyer leaned forward. The transfer agreement is quite clear. The transfer agreement, I cut in, was never legal in the first place. I turned my laptop around, showing them the original company documents. My grandfather put an ironclad succession clause in place. The company can only transfer to blood relatives or specifically approved successors. Marcus's marriage to my mother didn't give him true ownership, just temporary management rights. That's impossible, Jack sputtered. Dad's lawyers checked everything. Dad's lawyers, I said quietly, were paid to see what he wanted them to see, just like they didn't notice when he started embezzling funds, or when he tried to sell our patents to competitors. Emma's face went pale. You're lying. I pressed a button on my phone. Mr. Davidson, please come in. The door opened, and Anderson Manufacturing's original lawyer walked in. The man who'd worked with my grandfather for 30 years, whom Marcus had forced into early retirement. Everything Miss Anderson says is correct, he said, placing another stack of documents on the table. I helped write those succession clauses myself. Marcus Sterling never legally owned this company. Jack jumped to his feet. This is ridiculous. We'll fight this in court. Sit down, I said sharply, before I play the recordings. He froze. What recordings? I pulled out my phone and played a clip. Jack's voice discussing with Marcus how to hide company assets in offshore accounts. Then another. Emma bragging to a friend about how they were going to strip the company and sell it off piece by piece. The thing about modern technology, I said, stopping the playback, is that everything leaves a trail. Emails, phone calls, bank transfers, even those interesting meetings you had with our competitors last month. Their lawyer was shuffling papers nervously now. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're both going to sign resignation letters from your positions in the company. You're going to return every penny your father stole, and you're going to do it quietly. Or what? Emma challenged, but her voice shook. Or I release everything to the FBI, the SEC, and the press. How do you think your social circle will react when they learn you were planning to destroy a company that employs half the town? Harrison Peters cleared his throat. Perhaps we should discuss terms. No terms, I said. No negotiations. You have 1 hour to clear out your offices. After that, security has orders to treat you as trespassers. You can't do this to us, Jack shouted. We're family. No, I corrected him. You're thieves who happen to share my stepfather's last name. There's a difference. As they stormed out, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Board meeting in 30 minutes. Ready to show them what a real CEO looks like. I smiled, touching the worn leather of my grandfather's jacket. On my way. The boardroom was tense when I arrived. 12 members of the old guard, all of whom had supported Marcus's takeover, sat nervously around the massive oak table. Lady and gentlemen, I began, let's talk about the future of Anderson Manufacturing, and more importantly, your role in its recent past. I spent the next hour laying out everything, the fraudulent contracts they'd approved, the kickbacks they'd accepted, the way they'd helped Marcus slowly dismantle my grandfather's legacy. You have 2 choices, I concluded. Resign now and cooperate with the investigation, or face criminal charges alongside Marcus. You have 30 seconds to decide. One by one, they stood. Within minutes, the boardroom was empty, except for 3 members who had opposed Marcus from the start. Now, I said to them, let's rebuild what they tried to destroy. My phone buzzed again, a message from the prison. Marcus wanted to talk. Put him through, I told my assistant. You think you're clever. His voice was harsh over the speaker. But you have no idea what's coming. Actually, I replied calmly, I know exactly what's coming. The SEC just froze all your hidden accounts, including the ones in the Cayman Islands you thought nobody knew about. The patents you tried to sell to our competitors. Already recovered. And that little insurance policy you had with the local paper? They're running a different story tomorrow. What story? The truth. About how you married a grieving widow to steal her family's company. About how you nearly destroyed a business that's been the backbone of this community for 3 generations. About how your own children helped you do it. He was quiet for a long moment. Your mother will never forgive you. Mom? I glanced at my office door where she stood, tears in her eyes but head held high. She's the one who gave me access to your private files. Turns out she's been suspecting the truth for months. She just needed proof. I hung up as Mom walked in, looking around the office, my grandfather's office, now restored to its former dignity. He never understood, she said softly, touching the old desk. This was never just about money. No, I agreed. It was about legacy, about responsibility, about protecting what matters. She picked up an old photo of my grandfather and me, taken right here when I was 12. He'd be proud of you, you know. I know. I smiled, looking out over the factory floor where 3 generations of Andersons had built something worth fighting for. And this is just the beginning, because taking back what was stolen was only the first step. Now came the real challenge, rebuilding what Marcus had tried to destroy, and showing everyone exactly what happens when you underestimate a quiet girl who grew up learning every inch of her grandfather's empire. 3 weeks after Marcus's arrest, I sat in my grandfather's office reviewing the damage report. The numbers were worse than I'd expected. Marcus had embedded himself deeper in the company's finances than anyone realized. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Come in. My assistant Michael entered, looking nervous. Miss Anderson, there's something you need to see. He handed me a tablet showing surveillance footage from our secure document room. The timestamp read 3 a.m. last night. A figure in a maintenance uniform was carefully photographing confidential files. Have you identified them? Yes, he said quietly. It's Lisa Sterling, Marcus's youngest daughter, the quiet one who'd stayed in the background during all the chaos, the one I'd foolishly overlooked. Where is she now? In her office. Marketing department. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Call security. Have them meet me there. And Michael? Contact Harrison Peters' office. Tell him his law license is about to become very interesting to the Bar Association. Lisa's office was at the end of the marketing hall. Through the glass walls, I could see her frantically typing on her computer. When I entered, she jumped. Deleting evidence? I asked calmly. I don't know what you're talking about. I set the tablet on her desk, playing the surveillance footage. Want to try again? The color drained from her face. You don't understand. They made me do it. They? The investors. The ones Dad promised the company to. They're expecting a complete transfer of all proprietary information by noon today. I sat down across from her. Tell me everything. The story spilled out. How Marcus had secured his position by promising Anderson Manufacturing's assets to a group of foreign investors. How they'd bankrolled his takeover, expecting to strip the company bare once he had full control. How they'd threatened his children when things started falling apart. "They're dangerous people," Lisa whispered. "You have no idea what they're capable of." I smiled slightly. "Actually, I do, because I've been tracking them for months." Her eyes widened as I pulled out my phone and dialed a familiar number. "FBI Special Agent Thompson speaking. It's Sophia Anderson. Lisa Sterling is ready to talk." What happened next was a blur of federal agents, Homeland Security officials, and corporate lawyers. Lisa's testimony opened up an international investigation into corporate espionage that would eventually bring down one of the largest industrial theft rings in the country. But that wasn't the biggest surprise of the day. At 2 p.m., as I was reviewing Lisa's statement with the FBI, my phone buzzed with an urgent message from the prison. Marcus had been found unconscious in his cell. "Apparent suicide attempt," the warden reported, "but we found this note." The contents of the note would shake our entire industry to its core. Marcus hadn't just been working with foreign investors. He'd been part of a decades-long conspiracy involving some of the biggest names in manufacturing. Names like Harrison Industries, including my father. I sat in my office late that night, staring at the evidence I'd uncovered. The pieces had been there all along. The too perfect timing of Harrison Industries contracts, the way my father had helped me take down Marcus, his mysterious absences during key moments of the investigation. My phone rang. Dad's number. "You know," I said without preamble. "Of course you figured it out." He sighed. "You're too much like your grandfather. Was any of it real, or was I just another pawn in your game?" "Sophia." He paused. "Everything I did was to protect you. By using me to take down your rival. By manipulating me into thinking I was protecting my grandfather's legacy when I was really just clearing the way for your own takeover. The company was always meant to be yours," he said quietly. "Marcus was a threat to both our families. I just expedited his removal." I looked at my grandfather's portrait on the wall. "You should know something, Dad. I didn't just investigate Marcus. I investigated everyone." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Check your email," I continued. "You'll find copies of everything I have on Harrison Industries' involvement in the conspiracy. All the evidence has already been sent to multiple secure locations. What do you want? A clean break. Harrison Industries divests all interests in Anderson Manufacturing. You retire, quietly, and cooperate with the investigation. In return, I keep your name out of the public proceedings. You blackmail your own father." "You were never my father," I said softly. "You were just another man who thought he could steal my grandfather's legacy." After he hung up, Mom appeared in my doorway. She'd aged years in the past few weeks, but there was a strength in her eyes I hadn't seen since Grandpa died. "You knew," I said, "about Dad's involvement." She nodded. "Your grandfather told me on his deathbed, made me promise to wait until you were ready to handle the truth." "Ready to handle it? Or ready to fight back?" She smiled sadly. "Both. He always said you were the only one who truly understood what he built here. Not just a company, but a purpose." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the factory floor where workers were starting the night shift. 3 generations of families had worked these machines, built their lives around this company. "We'll rebuild," I said firmly. "Better than before. No more secret deals, no more conspiracies, just honest work and fair treatment." "Your grandfather used to say something about honest work," Mom remembered. "The only legacy worth having is the one you build with clean hands and clear conscience," I quoted. I finally understand what he meant. The next morning, I called an all-hands meeting in the main assembly area. Every employee, from senior managers to maintenance staff, gathered to hear what would happen next. Anderson Manufacturing has stood for 3 generations. I began. It survived war, recession, and betrayal. Some of you have worked here longer than I've been alive. Others are just starting your journey with us. But every one of you is part of this family. I paused, looking at their faces, worried, hopeful, determined. Starting today, we're implementing my grandfather's original vision: employee profit sharing, educational benefits, a real voice in company decisions. Because this isn't just my company, it's ours. The cheer that went up shook the rafters. Later, as I sat in my office signing the papers that would transform Anderson Manufacturing into an employee-owned enterprise, I found an old letter in my grandfather's desk. It was addressed to me, dated just before his death. My dearest Sophia, if you're reading this, you finally discovered the truth about the wolves circling our company. Your father, Marcus, all of them thinking they could take what we built. But you, my quiet, watchful granddaughter, you were always the one I trusted to see through their schemes, to understand that real power isn't in hostile takeovers or secret deals, but in building something that matters. You've probably made some hard choices by now, choices that hurt, that cost you people you thought you could trust. Remember this: a legacy built on truth may be harder to achieve, but it's impossible to steal. Take care of our people, Sophia. They're the real heart of everything we built. With pride and love, Grandpa. I folded the letter carefully and looked out at the factory floor, where the night shift was just ending, day shift workers arriving with lunch boxes and coffee thermoses. My phone was quiet. No more crisis calls, no more threats, no more schemes. Just the steady hum of machines, the rhythm of honest work, and the knowledge that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should have watched all along. Because I wasn't just my grandfather's hair anymore. I was his legacy. And this time, I'd make sure it lasted. The leather chair in my father's study felt cold, despite the warm summer air drifting through the open windows. My sister Victoria stood behind him, her perfectly manicured hands resting on his shoulders, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. Mom sat quietly in the corner, refusing to meet my eyes. "It's quite simple, Elizabeth," Dad said, sliding the papers across his mahogany desk. "Sign over your inheritance rights to Victoria, and you can keep your current lifestyle. Refuse, and you're cut off. Completely." I looked at the document, a full renunciation of my inheritance rights to both Grandma's estate and the family business, Harrison Enterprises. The ink on Grandma's death certificate was barely dry, and they were already dividing up her empire like vultures. "Why?" I asked quietly. "Why now?" Because Victoria stepped forward, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor. The company needs strong leadership. Someone who understands business. Not some charity-obsessed dreamer who'd give everything away to the first sad story they heard. I almost smiled. They had no idea. And this has nothing to do with Grandma changing her will last month. Dad's facade cracked slightly. That's irrelevant. She wasn't in her right mind. Really? I pulled out my phone, playing a video I'd recorded just 2 weeks ago. Grandma sat in her garden, lucid and sharp as ever, discussing her plans for the company's future. "Turn that off," Victoria snapped. "Why? Afraid of what else she might have recorded?" Dad's face hardened. "Enough games. Sign the papers, or you're out. No more trust fund, no more apartment, no more safety net. You'll have nothing." I picked up the pen, its weight familiar in my hand. "You're right about one thing," I said, signing my name with a flourish. "After today, everything changes." Victoria snatched the papers, checking my signature. Finally, showing some sense. "Oh, I'm showing something all right." I reached into my bag and pulled out a heavy manila envelope. Grandma left me something better than an inheritance. "What are you talking about?" Dad's voice held a note of uncertainty. I opened the envelope, the contents of Grandma's safety deposit box, which I'd retrieved this morning. Their smiles vanished when they saw what I spread across the desk. Documents, photographs, USB drives, and a letter written in Grandma's distinctive hand, addressed to the SEC. "What is this?" Victoria whispered. "Evidence," I said calmly, "of every illegal transaction, every falsified report, every embezzled dollar you've stolen from the company over the past 5 years." Dad lunged for the papers, but I was faster, sliding them back into the envelope. "Copies are already with my lawyer," I continued, "and the SEC, and the FBI. Grandma was quite thorough in her documentation." "You're lying." Victoria's voice shook. "Grandma didn't know anything about how you've been stealing from the pension fund, or about Dad's offshore accounts, or maybe about your little side deal with our competitors." Mom finally spoke from her corner. "Robert? What is she talking about?" "Nothing," Dad said quickly. "Elizabeth is just trying to cause trouble." I pulled out my tablet, pulling up the encrypted files Grandma had collected. These records show otherwise. Bank transfers, forged signatures, falsified board minutes. Grandma spent the last year of her life gathering evidence against you both. "Why would she do that?" Victoria demanded. "Because she knew what you really were. She watched you strip the company bare, steal from loyal employees, destroy everything our family built." Dad's face had gone pale. "The board will never believe." "The board meeting is in an hour," I cut him off. "Would you like to know what else is in this envelope? Like how you've been paying them off to ignore the fraud." Victoria's perfect composure cracked. "You can't prove any of this." I stood slowly, gathering my things. "Actually, I can. Grandma made sure of that. She knew you'd try to force me out eventually. That's why she spent months teaching me everything about the company, showing me where to look, what to document." "We're your family," Dad tried one last time. "Family?" I laughed softly. "Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't destroy lives for profit. Grandma was family. She taught me what that really means." My phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer. "SEC agents in position. Board members arriving early. You have 30 minutes, I told them. Either resign voluntarily and return everything you stole, or face criminal charges. You'd send your own father to prison?" Dad's voice cracked. "You were willing to leave me with nothing," I reminded him. "Actions have consequences." Victoria grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. "Wait, there must be something we can." "Actually," I pulled free, "there is something else you should know." I paused at the door. "I never needed your trust fund. Everything I have, I earned. The charity work you mocked? It was a cover for my real job, forensic accounting. Grandma hired me 2 years ago to investigate you both." The silence in the room was deafening. 30 minutes, I reminded them. Tick-tock. As I walked out, I heard Victoria's heels clicking frantically across the floor, probably rushing to her office to start deleting files. But it was too late. Everything was already documented, copied, secured. My phone buzzed again. An email from Grandma's lawyer, scheduled to be delivered today. My dearest Elizabeth, if you're reading this, you've finally shown them who you really are. Remember what I taught you. True strength isn't in what you have, but in how you use it. Make them understand what it means to betray family. All my love, Grandma. I smiled, heading toward the boardroom where the real showdown would begin. Because this wasn't just about inheritance or money. This was about justice, truth, and showing everyone exactly why you should never underestimate the quiet one who watches and waits. And I was just getting started. The boardroom of Harrison Enterprises looked different from the head of the table. 14 board members sat nervously around the massive oak surface, their usual arrogance replaced by poorly concealed fear. The evidence files from Grandma's safety deposit box lay before me, an arsenal ready to be deployed. Victoria burst in, her designer outfit slightly disheveled, followed by Dad, who looked like he'd aged a decade in the past 30 minutes. Mom slipped in quietly behind them, taking a seat near the door. Before we begin, I said calmly, I should introduce our guests. I gestured to the two serious-looking individuals by the window. Agent Phillips and Agent Torres from the SEC. They're very interested in our company's recent financial activities. This is ridiculous, Victoria started. You can't just. Actually, I can. I opened the first file. Let's start with the pension fund. Specifically, how $47 million disappeared into various shell companies owned by the Sterling family. That's you, Victoria. She went pale. Those were legitimate business transactions. Really? I pulled up a document on the screen behind me, because according to these transfer records, the money went directly into your personal accounts in the Cayman Islands. One of the board members, George Wilson, cleared his throat. Miss Harrison, surely we can discuss this privately. Like you discussed the kickbacks, Mr. Wilson. I turned to the next page. Grandma was particularly interested in the consulting fees paid to your children's companies. Companies that don't actually exist. The room went deadly quiet. Elizabeth, Dad tried, his voice attempting authority but failing. You're making a mistake. Think about what you're doing to this family. Family. I stood slowly. Let's talk about family, Dad. Let's talk about how you and Victoria have been selling company secrets to our competitors. How you've been stealing from employees who've worked here for decades. How you plan to strip this company bare and leave nothing but empty shells and broken promises. I pressed a button on my laptop. The screen filled with surveillance footage. Dad and Victoria in secret meetings, handling documents, making transfers. Grandma saw everything. I continued. She watched you betray everything she built. But instead of confronting you directly, she decided to teach you a lesson about consequences. By destroying her own company. Victoria sneered, but her voice shook. No, by saving it from you. I pulled out another document. Grandma's last amendment to her will, properly notarized and witnessed. 3 months ago, Grandma transferred controlling interest in Harrison Enterprises to a blind trust. Care to guess who the trustee is? Dad's face went ashen. No. Yes. Everything you thought you were inheriting? It's been under my control since before she died. That inheritance you just made me sign away. Worthless papers. Victoria lunged across the table, reaching for the will, but Agent Phillips stepped forward quickly. Miss Sterling, please remain seated. I continued as if nothing had happened. Every board member involved in the fraud has 2 choices: resign immediately and cooperate with the investigation, or face criminal charges. And before you think about destroying evidence, I smiled slightly. Everything has already been documented and secured. One by one, board members began standing, heading for the door. Only 3 remained seated, the ones Grandma had identified as honest. Elizabeth. Mom spoke for the first time, her voice small. What happens now? Now. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. Victoria and Dad will sign these confession statements and resignation letters. They'll return every penny they stole. They'll cooperate fully with the federal investigation. And if we refuse, Dad challenged. I played my final card, pulling up emails showing their plans to frame the company's longtime CFO for their crimes. Then Martin Lewis's family gets to learn how you planned to destroy his life to save yourselves. I'm sure his daughter, you remember Sarah, right, Dad? Your goddaughter? Would be very interested in these conversations. Victoria slumped in her chair. You really are grandmother's hair. No, I corrected her. I'm her justice. As they signed the papers with trembling hands, my phone buzzed with an alert. The company's stock had been temporarily suspended from trading. Standard procedure when fraud is discovered. One more thing, I said as they stood to leave. The apartment you're living in, Victoria? The one you thought Grandma gave you? Check the deed. She froze. What about it? It belongs to the employee pension fund now. Consider it the first repayment of what you stole. You have 48 hours to vacate. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, her voice small for the first time I could remember. Perhaps you should have thought about that before you stole from people who lived paycheck to paycheck. After they left, Mom stayed behind. Did you know? All along. I suspected, I admitted, but Grandma confirmed it. She wanted to see if they would change on their own, make better choices. When they didn't, she chose you to deliver justice, Mom finished. Not just justice, I said, touching Grandma's old nameplate on the desk. Redemption. For the company, for the employees, for our family's name. My phone buzzed again, a message from Grandma's old assistant. The safe in her house. Did you find what she left there? I smiled, thinking of the other safety deposit box I hadn't opened yet. The one containing the real secrets that would shake our industry to its core. Because this wasn't just about Harrison Enterprises anymore. This was about exposing a network of corruption that reached far beyond our family. And Grandma had left me everything I needed to finish what she started. The key to Grandma's second safety deposit box felt heavy in my hand as I stood in the bank's private viewing room. It had been a week since the boardroom showdown, and the dust was finally starting to settle. Victoria had moved out of the apartment. Dad had checked himself into a stress management facility, and Mom was slowly coming to terms with the new reality. But Grandma's last message suggested there was more to come. The second box contains the real war chest, dear. Use it wisely. With trembling fingers, I inserted the key. Inside lay a single red leather notebook and a USB drive marked insurance. My phone buzzed. A text from Agent Phillips. They're making moves. Victoria was seen meeting with Harrison Global's CEO. Of course, they wouldn't go down without a fight. Back in my office, Grandma's old office, I opened the notebook. Her elegant handwriting filled every page, detailing a conspiracy that made our family's fraud look like pocket change. My dearest Elizabeth, the first page read, What you're about to learn will test everything you believe about our industry. Harrison Global, Sterling Industries, Wellington Corp. They're all connected. The fraud goes back decades. your father and sister weren't just stealing from our company. They were part of a larger network. One that's destroyed countless lives, ruined families, and corrupted everything it touched. I plugged in a USB drive. Thousands of files appeared. Emails, bank records, photographs, and recorded conversations. Names of respected business leaders jumped out, along with politicians, judges, and regulatory officials. My hands shook as I read through the evidence. This wasn't just corporate fraud. It was systematic corruption on an unimaginable scale. Another text from Agent Phillips. Victoria just left Harrison Global. She looked happy. Should we be worried? Before I could respond, my office door burst open. Victoria strode in, looking triumphant, in a new designer suit. Well, well, she smirked. Enjoying Grandma's old office? Better pack up. The board's calling an emergency meeting in an hour. I leaned back in my chair. Let me guess. Harrison Global is launching a hostile takeover? Her smile faltered slightly. You can't stop it. We have the votes, the backing, everything we need. Interesting timing, I said, opening Grandma's notebook. Did you tell your new friends about the evidence Grandma collected on them too? What are you talking about? I turned my laptop around, showing her the files. Her face went from smug to ashen as she recognized names, dates, transactions. That's impossible. No, I said quietly. That's Grandma's real legacy. She spent years documenting everything. Every corrupt deal, every bribed official, every destroyed life. And now it's all mine. You're bluffing. But her voice shook. I pressed a button on my phone. Agent Phillips, please come in. The SEC agent entered, followed by 2 FBI agents and a federal prosecutor. Perfect timing, I said. Victoria was just about to tell us about her meeting with Harrison Global, specifically about their plan to use stolen pension funds to finance the takeover. Victoria sank into a chair. You don't understand. They'll kill me if I talk. Actually, we understand perfectly. I opened another file. Grandma documented the threats too. That's why she set up witness protection arrangements for anyone willing to testify. The federal prosecutor stepped forward. Miss Sterling, we're prepared to offer you a deal. Full immunity in exchange for your testimony against Harrison Global and the others. Victoria looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. Why are you offering this? After everything I did? Because Grandma believed in redemption. I said softly, even for those who lost their way. She buried her face in her hands. I'll need protection. For me and Dad. Already arranged, Agent Phillips confirmed. As Victoria left with the agents, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Miss Harrison? A gruff voice said. This is Senator Matthews. We need to talk about your grandmother's files. Actually, Senator, I smiled grimly. We need to talk about your offshore accounts and those interesting votes on banking regulations. The next few weeks were a blur of federal investigations, witness statements, and media frenzy. Harrison Global's CEO was arrested trying to flee the country. Sterling Industries filed for bankruptcy. Wellington Corp's board resigned en masse. Through it all, I kept finding more of Grandma's breadcrumbs, carefully laid clues leading to deeper corruption, bigger names, darker secrets. Mom found me late one night, still working through the files. Your grandmother knew, she said quietly. She knew they'd try to push you out, that Victoria and your father would betray her trust. That's why she chose you. She chose me because I was quiet, I corrected. because I watched and learned while they were busy showing off and taking credit. No. Mom touched Grandma's old notebook. She chose you because you have her heart and her steel. The company's annual meeting was scheduled for the next day. Employees, shareholders, and media would all be watching to see what would rise from the ashes of the scandal. I spent the night in Grandma's old office, reading her final letter one more time. Elizabeth, my quiet warrior, by now you've unveiled the truth. The corruption runs deep, but your roots run deeper. Remember, real power isn't in what you destroy, but in what you build from the ruins. I've given you the weapons to tear down the old corrupt system. Now show them how to build something better. All my love, Grandma. The next morning, I stood before a packed auditorium. Familiar faces looked back. Employees who'd almost lost everything. Board members who'd stayed honest, even Victoria and Dad, out on bail and looking subdued in the back row. Harrison Enterprises was built on a simple idea, I began. That business could be both profitable and ethical. That success didn't require corruption. My grandmother believed this. She spent her final years gathering evidence not just to expose corruption, but to prove that another way was possible. I unveiled our new company structure, employee ownership, transparent accounting, ethical investment standards. We're not just changing policies, I continued. We're changing the game. The old system of corruption and greed is over. Today, we start building something new. Something worthy of my grandmother's legacy. The applause was deafening. Later, alone in Grandma's office, I opened her notebook to the last page, finding words I hadn't noticed before. P.P.S. Check behind the painting of the garden. Some secrets need to be kept for the right moment. I smiled, touching the familiar canvas. There would be time for more revelations later. For now, I had a legacy to rebuild, a family to heal, and a grandmother's final lesson to honor. That sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should have watched all along. Because they're the ones who see everything, remember everything, and when the time is right, change everything. The autumn rain pattered against my car window as I pulled into my parents' driveway for our monthly family dinner. These dinners had become a ritual of humiliation over the past 5 years. Ever since I'd walked away from the proper career path my family had planned for me. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusting my simple pearl earrings, a gift from my grandmother before she passed. At 36, I looked nothing like the corporate success story my sister Jessica embodied. No designer suits, no elaborate hairstyle, just clean professionalism and quiet confidence. The porch light flickered on automatically as I approached the door, probably triggered by one of the many smart home features Jessica had insisted on installing for our parents. Another display of her supposed success. "Oh, Emma's here," my mother's voice carried through the door before I could knock. The slight disappointment in her tone was familiar. I was always Emma. Never my successful daughter or my accomplished child. Those titles were reserved for Jessica. The door opened to reveal my sister in all her glory. Channel suit, perfectly styled hair. That practiced look of condescending concern she'd perfected since childhood. "Emma, you're actually on time for once," she smirked, air-kissing my cheek. "And in the rain, too. Still haven't replaced that old Honda?" I smiled, hanging my coat in the foyer. "It gets me where I need to go." "I'm sure it does," she said with false sweetness. "Unlike my new Mercedes. Have you seen it? Company car, of course. One of the perks of being senior VP at Atlas Corp." "Ah, There it was, the first brag of the evening, right on schedule. The dining room was warm and bright, set with Mom's best china. Another tradition meant to highlight the contrast between Jessica's achievements and my supposed failures. Dad sat at the head of the table, already nursing his usual scotch, while Mom fussed over the place settings. "Emma, dear," Mom called out, "we put you next to Aunt Sarah. I thought you two could discuss things." By things, she meant Aunt Sarah's recent divorce and subsequent career struggles. The failure corner, where they seated anyone who didn't meet their standards of success. "Actually," I said quietly, "I'll sit here." I pulled out a chair at the main part of the table, directly across from Jessica. My mother's eyebrows shot up, but she said nothing. "So," Jessica began as the first course was served. "I was just telling Mom and Dad about my promotion. Senior Vice President of Operations at Atlas Corp., youngest in company history." "That's wonderful," I murmured, taking a sip of water. "Of course, it's not just the title," she continued, warming to her favorite subject, herself. "I'm overseeing the merger with Thompson Industries, leading the restructuring team, basically running the whole show while they search for a new CEO. Dad beamed with pride. "That's my girl. Always knew you'd make it big. Unlike some people," Jessica added, shooting me a pointed look. "Still doing that consulting thing, Emma? Or have you finally realized it's time to get a real job?" Mom jumped in, ever the peacekeeper. "Now, Jessica, I'm sure Emma is doing her best." "Oh, I am," I said, my voice steady. "How's the Thompson merger going? I heard there were some complications." Jessica's smile faltered slightly. "Nothing I can't handle. We're announcing the final details next week. The board's very impressed with my leadership." "Interesting," I said, cutting my salmon into perfect squares. "And the tech integration? All sorted?" "Of course," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Everything's proceeding exactly as planned." I nodded, saying nothing. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Mom jumped in with her usual nervous chatter about the neighbor's new landscaping. "Actually," Jessica announced, clearly eager to reclaim the spotlight, "I should tell you all my big news. The board called me in today for a special meeting. Here it comes. They're expanding my role." She practically glowed. "Starting next month, I'll be overseeing all operational integration for both companies. It's practically a CEO-level position." "Practically," I echoed. "My sister's a nobody," Jessica bragged, turning to our parents. "Well, I just got promoted at Atlas Corp. Can you believe it? 2 companies under my control." I set down my fork carefully, dabbed my lips with the napkin and smiled. "Congratulations, Jessica. I'm the new CEO there." The silence was absolute. Jessica's wine glass stopped halfway to her mouth. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Mom's nervous chatter died mid-sentence. "What?" Jessica whispered. "Atlas Corp," I repeated calmly. "The board appointed me CEO this morning. I start Monday." "That's impossible," Jessica sputtered. "I would have known. I'm senior VP. I'm in all the major meetings." "The ones you're invited to, yes." I pulled out my phone and pulled up an email. "Would you like to see the announcement? It goes out tomorrow morning. But as my direct report, I thought you should hear it from me first." "Direct report?" The color drained from Jessica's face as the implications sank in. "Oh, and about the Thompson merger?" I continued, my voice still pleasant. "We should discuss those complications you mentioned. particularly the $300 million in undisclosed tech debt you seem to have missed in your due diligence. Dad's scotch glass hit the table hard. Emma, what exactly are you saying? I stood slowly, smoothing my simple black dress. I'm saying that tomorrow morning, Atlas Corp will announce its new CEO. The same person who's been quietly consulting for them for the past 5 years, restructuring their tech division and preparing for this exact moment. I turned to Jessica, the same nobody's sister who's been watching you take credit for other people's work, manipulate reports, and nearly derail a billion-dollar merger. You can't, Jessica started. I can. I cut her off. And I will. Board meeting, Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. I picked up my purse and turned to our parents. Dinner was lovely, as always. Though next time, perhaps we could all sit at the main table. The walk to my Honda had never felt so satisfying. Behind me, through the dining room windows, I could hear Jessica's voice rising in panic, Mom's attempts at soothing, Dad's confused questions. But I wasn't done yet. Monday morning would bring more surprises, and Jessica's perfect world was about to shatter completely. The Atlas Corp headquarters gleamed in the early morning sunlight, its 60 floors of glass and steel reaching into the clear blue sky. I pulled my Honda into the CEO parking spot, right next to Jessica's Mercedes, and smiled at the security guard's double-take. "Morning, Frank," I said, showing my new badge. "How's Sarah doing in college?" He beamed. "Great, Ms. Thompson. That scholarship program you recommended, it changed her life." Inside, the lobby was buzzing with unusual energy. News of the CEO announcement had leaked, though not the specifics. Employees huddled in small groups, whispering theories and speculation. I caught fragments as I walked past. Heard it's someone internal. Jessica Thompson for sure. She's been telling everyone. Maybe that consultant who fixed the tech division. The executive floor was eerily quiet when I stepped off the elevator. Jessica's assistant, Madison, sat at her desk looking shell-shocked. She'd probably already seen the announcement email scheduled for 8:30 a.m. "Good morning, Madison," I said pleasantly. "Is my sister in yet?" "Why, yes, Miss Thompson. She's in her office. I mean, her current office." I nodded. "Please have her meet me in the CEO's office in 10 minutes. And Madison, you can call me Emma." The CEO's office suite was exactly as I remembered from my consulting days, all mahogany and leather, designed to intimidate rather than inspire. That would be changing soon. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "We need to talk. Now." I settled behind the massive desk, opened my laptop, and waited. 3, 2, 1. The door burst open. Jessica stormed in, her perfect composure cracking around the edges. Her channel suit was slightly wrinkled, probably from a sleepless night. "What the hell is this?" She slapped a printout of the announcement email on my desk. "Some kind of joke." "Good morning to you too, Jessica. Please, sit down." "I will not sit down. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've spent years building my position here, cultivating relationships, proving myself, taking credit for other people's work." I interrupted calmly. "Hiding problems in the Thompson merger? Manipulating reports to make yourself look better?" She paled slightly but rallied. "You can't prove any of that." "Actually," I said, turning my laptop around, "I can. Would you like to see the evidence? The board has already reviewed it all, of course. It's part of why they chose me for CEO." "The board?" She laughed. but it sounded hollow. I know everyone on the board. They wouldn't. You know the old board, I corrected her. The one that stepped down last month after the pension fund scandal. The new board? They're a bit more thorough. Jessica sank into a chair, her legs seemingly giving out. How long have I been preparing for this? 5 years. Ever since you took credit for my tech restructuring plan and got your first promotion. I leaned forward. Did you really think I was just some failed consultant all this time? That I didn't notice you using my strategies, my ideas, even my exact phrases in your presentations? I earned my position, she whispered, but the conviction was gone from her voice. No, you didn't. But here's your chance to earn something real. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. Your new position. Junior Operations Manager, reporting to the actual team that's been doing your work all these years. Junior? She looked like she might faint. You can't demote me. I'll resign first. Of course you can resign, I agreed. But then I'd have to include the full details of your creative accounting in the SEC filing. And I don't think your next employer would appreciate that. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Thompson? The board is ready for the morning meeting. Thank you, Madison. I stood, straightening my jacket. Come in, Jessica. I believe you have a presentation on the Thompson merger. The real numbers this time, please. The boardroom fell silent as we entered. The new board members, hand-picked for their expertise and integrity, watched with varying degrees of interest as Jessica stumbled through her presentation. Every misleading statement, every inflated number, every hidden problem was methodically exposed. And that, I concluded after she finished, is why we'll be restructuring the merger timeline. Teams have already been assembled to address the tech debt issues that were overlooked. Excellent work, Ms. Thompson. The board chair nodded. Both in uncovering these issues and in your previous consulting work that actually kept this company afloat. Jessica's head snapped up. Previous work. Oh yes, the chair smiled. Your sister's been the architect of every major successful initiative here for the past 5 years. Though I believe you took credit for most of them. The meeting ended with Jessica looking thoroughly defeated. As everyone filed out, I caught her arm. Weekly status meeting, my office, tomorrow at 9 a.m., I said quietly. Don't be late. And Jessica? Wear something more appropriate for your new position. Channel suits aren't really junior management style. Back in my office, I began the real work. The Thompson merger needed saving, the tech division needed strengthening, and the corporate culture needed a complete overhaul. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Please call us. We need to understand what's happening. I smiled, remembering all those family dinners, all those subtle jabs, and not so subtle comparisons. Nothing to understand. I typed back. Just your nobody daughter doing what she does best, succeeding. The afternoon brought a parade of executives, all suddenly eager to meet the new CEO they'd overlooked for years. Each one had a story about how they'd always respected my work and never really agreed with Jessica's methods. Amazing how quickly people's memories change when power shifts. By evening, Jessica's nameplate had been removed from her executive office door. Her assistant Madison was being reassigned, promoted, actually, to work directly with me. And the Thompson merger team was already implementing the solutions I'd prepared months ago. As I packed up for the day, a final email arrived from Jessica. You won't get away with this. Family doesn't do this to family. I thought about all the times she'd undermined me, belittled me, stolen my work. about all the family dinners where she'd made sure everyone knew exactly how much of a nobody I was. "You're right," I typed back. "Family doesn't do this to family. Remember that next time you're tempted to take credit for someone else's work. See you at tomorrow's status meeting. Don't be late." The Honda started smoothly as I pulled out of the CEO parking spot. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove exactly why I deserved this position. And Jessica? She was about to learn what it really meant to earn your success. 6 months passed in a whirlwind of changes at Atlas Corp. The Thompson merger, properly restructured, had become a case study in successful corporate integration. Our stock price had risen 40%, employee satisfaction scores were at an all-time high, and the tech division was revolutionizing the industry. And Jessica? She'd survived. Barely, in her new role as junior operations manager. Every morning, I watched her Honda Civic. The Mercedes had been a company car, naturally, pull into the regular employee parking lot. Every week, she sat through status meetings, presenting actual data instead of manipulated reports. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed again. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office, now redesigned to be more collaborative than intimidating, when Madison buzzed in. "Your parents are here," she said, her voice careful. "They don't have an appointment, but—" I sighed. After 6 months of ignored calls and declined dinner invitations, they'd finally decided to take direct action. Send them in. They looked older somehow, less imposing than I remembered. Mom's designer outfit seemed forced. Dad's usually commanding presence diminished. They stood awkwardly just inside the door, taking in the changes to the office they'd once visited to praise Jessica's accomplishments. "Nice view," Dad attempted, gesturing at the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Better than the failure corner at dinner," I replied mildly. "Please sit." They settled onto the modern conference chairs. Gone was the intimidating leather furniture of the old regime. Mom clutched her handbag like a shield. "Emma," she began, "we've been trying to reach you. I've been busy. Running a company takes time. But you knew that, right? All those times you praised Jessica's 60-hour weeks while dismissing my consulting thing." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "About that, we may have been hasty in our judgments." Hasty. I pulled up a file on my laptop. "Let's review, shall we? 5 years of family dinners where I was seated in the failure corner. Countless comments about getting a real job. The time you skipped my consulting firm's launch party to attend Jessica's promotion celebration. Hasty doesn't quite cover it." "We didn't know," Mom protested. "Jessica always said." "That's the problem." I cut in. "You never asked me. Never looked beyond the surface. Never questioned why Atlas Corp's success always seemed to align with my consulting contracts. And now?" Dad asked quietly. I turned my laptop around, showing them the company's latest financial reports. Now Atlas Corp is stronger than ever. The Thompson merger that Jessica nearly derailed. It's revolutionizing the industry. The tech division she claimed was worthless. It's our biggest growth sector. "And your sister?" Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "See for yourself." I pressed the intercom. "Madison, please ask Jessica to join us." A few minutes later, Jessica slipped into the office. Gone were the designer suits and perfect makeup. She wore business casual attire, her hair simply styled, her expression guarded. "Sit down, Jessica," I said, gesturing to the remaining chair. "Your quarterly review is due." She pulled out a folder. Actual paper, not the glossy presentations of her VP days, and began reviewing her team's progress. Real numbers, real achievements, modest but genuine success. Thank you, I said when she finished. Much better than last quarter. You're learning. Our parents watched this exchange in stunned silence. The power dynamic they'd known for 36 years had completely reversed. One more thing, I added, pulling out another folder. The board has reviewed your performance. They're offering you a promotion. Senior Operations Manager, leading the new regional office. Jessica's head snapped up. Really? You've earned it. I emphasized the word. With actual work this time. The position starts next month, in our Minneapolis office. Minneapolis? Mom gasped. But that's a fantastic opportunity, I finished. Unless you prefer to stay in your current position, Jessica? She shook her head quickly. No, thank you, I accept. After she left, our parents sat in continued silence until Dad finally spoke. We were wrong, he said simply. Yes, you were. Can we fix this? Mom asked. I leaned back in my chair, touching the pearl earrings. Grandma's last gift. That depends. Are you ready to actually see me? Not as Jessica's shadow, not as the family disappointment, but as who I really am. They nodded, looking almost childlike in their uncertainty. Then yes, we can try, starting with dinner. At my house this time. No failure corner, no comparisons, no judgments. Just family, learning to see each other clearly. That evening, after they left, I stood at my office window watching the city lights flicker to life. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Thank you. For the promotion, for the chance, for everything. You earned it, I replied. That's the difference. Another text, this time from Mom. Your home is beautiful, just like you. We're so sorry we didn't see it sooner. I smiled, touching the pearls again. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about corner offices or designer suits. It was about staying true to yourself, doing the work, and sometimes letting others learn their own hard lessons. Madison buzzed in one last time. Tomorrow's schedule is ready. Board meeting at 9, strategy review at 11, and the Thompson team presentation at 2. Thank you, Madison. Oh, and one more thing. Yes. Move the family photo from the failure corner to my desk. It's time to make some new memories. The city lights twinkled below, reflecting off the glass and steel of the building that had become my domain. Not through manipulation or false claims, but through hard work, patience, and the quiet confidence that truth eventually prevails. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong, it's teaching them to be better. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the dusty windows of Mason Gallery, casting long shadows across the empty exhibition space. I stood there, breathing in the familiar scent of oil paint and aged wood, trying to process the events of the past 24 hours. My name is Emma Mason, and yesterday, I inherited what my family considered their greatest disappointment, a failing art gallery in downtown Boston. The lawyer's office still felt vivid in my memory. The heavy mahogany desk, the ticking grandfather clock, and my brother Marcus's smugly expensive cologne filling the air. Our parents' will reading should have been a somber affair, but Marcus couldn't contain his triumph as Mr. Patterson read out the terms. To our son, Marcus Mason, we leave the sum of $50 million, our Hampton estate, and controlling interest in Mason Industries. Mr. Patterson's voice had been clinical, detached. To our daughter Emma, we leave Mason Gallery and its contents. Marcus had actually laughed out loud. Finally, Dad always said you get exactly what you deserved, Emma. I can still see his perfectly tailored suit, his Italian leather shoes, the way he lounged in his chair like he owned the room. In many ways, he now did. The gallery's been losing money for years, he continued, examining his manicured nails. But hey, at least you'll have plenty of dust to keep you company. Maybe you can sell pencil sketches to tourists. The thing is, Marcus wasn't wrong about the gallery's financial situation. Mason Gallery had been struggling for the past decade. What had once been Boston's premier showcase for emerging artists had gradually declined into a barely breaking-even operation that most serious collectors ignored. But what Marcus didn't understand, what my parents never understood, was that I had always seen something in this place that they missed. I grew up in these halls, spending countless afternoons with my grandfather, Theodore Mason, the gallery's founder. While my parents were busy grooming Marcus for the family business and my mother was planning his path to an MBA, Grandpa Theo taught me about art. Real art. Not just the price tags and investment potential that my parents fixated on, but the soul behind each piece. Emma, my dear, he would say, his eyes twinkling behind wire-rimmed glasses, remember that true value isn't always visible at first glance. Sometimes the greatest treasures hide in plain sight, waiting for the right person to discover them. Those words echoed in my mind now as I walked through the gallery's main hall. The space was beautiful, even in its current state. Soaring ceilings, classic crown molding, and huge windows that, when clean, could flood the room with natural light. But years of minimal maintenance had taken their toll. The hardwood floors needed refinishing, the walls cried out for fresh paint, and half the track lighting had burned out. I reached the back office, my footsteps echoing in the silence. This had been my grandfather's sanctuary, though my parents had eventually converted it into a sterile storage space. Filing cabinets lined the walls, and a layer of dust covered everything. But underneath it all, I could still feel Grandpa Theo's presence. Running my fingers along his old desk, now relegated to a corner and piled with boxes, I remembered the stories he used to tell me about the gallery's early days. How he built it from nothing in the 1960s, turning it into a haven for artists who would later become legends. There were whispers that he had amassed an incredible private collection over the years, but after his death 15 years ago, nothing extraordinary was ever found. My parents had searched, of course. They spent months combing through the gallery, convinced that Grandpa Theo had hidden away masterpieces worth millions. They hired experts, brought in appraisers, even had the walls scanned for hidden spaces. They found nothing but the gallery's regular inventory, decent pieces, but nothing that would make headlines. Eventually, they gave up. The gallery became an afterthought, a tax write-off. They kept running out of some lingering sense of obligation to Grandpa Theo's memory. They focused on Mason Industries instead, grooming Marcus to take over the family's real legacy, while I studied art history and worked as a curator at smaller museums. A sudden draft made me shiver, pulling me back to the present. Night had fallen while I was lost in memories, and the gallery felt different in the darkness. The shapes of sculptures threw strange shadows on the walls, and the few paintings still on display seemed to watch me with knowing eyes. I was about to leave when something caught my attention. A slight unevenness in the floorboards near Grandpa Theo's desk that I'd never noticed before. Kneeling down, I ran my hands over the wood. There was definitely something off about the pattern, a subtle irregularity that seemed intentional rather than the result of age. My heart started beating faster as I remembered another of Grandpa Theo's favorite sayings. The best hiding place is one that looks like it's trying to hide something else. I spent the next hour examining every inch of that floor and the surrounding area. Just when I was about to give up, my fingers found it. A tiny lever disguised as a knot in the wood. With trembling hands, I pulled it. The mechanism was so well crafted that it barely made a sound. A small section of the floorboards slid aside, revealing a narrow space underneath. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellow with age, and a single key that looked far older than the gallery itself. The journal was my grandfather's. I recognized his distinctive handwriting immediately, but it wasn't his usual flowing script. These notes were hurried, almost frantic, filled with sketches and calculations and what looked like coded messages. One page caught my eye. At the top, in bold letters, it read, "The True Collection, for Emma's eyes only." My hands shook as I turned the page, but before I could read further, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. "Meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Time to discuss selling that dusty gallery of yours. I already have buyers interested in the building." I looked at the journal in my hands, then back at the message. Marcus had no idea what I just found, and for now, that was exactly how I wanted to keep it. I carefully returned the journal and key to their hiding place, making sure the floor panel was securely closed. Walking out of the gallery that night, I felt different. The weight of my seemingly worthless inheritance had transformed into something else: anticipation. My grandfather had left me more than just a struggling gallery. He'd left me a mystery. And tomorrow, while Marcus would be planning to strip this place for parts, I would begin to uncover what Grandpa Theo had hidden away all those years ago. I locked the gallery's front door, the key feeling more significant in my hand than ever before. Looking up at the building's elegant facade, I smiled, remembering Grandpa Theo's words one last time. "Patience, Emma. The best stories take time to unfold." He was right. This was just the beginning. I arrived at the gallery early the next morning, well before my 9 a.m. meeting with Marcus. The sunrise painted the empty halls in shades of gold, but I barely noticed. My mind was focused on one thing: the hidden compartment and its contents. Kneeling by Grandpa Theo's old desk, I triggered the secret mechanism again. The journal and key felt heavier now, weighted with possibility. Finding a quiet corner, I began to read. "My dearest Emma," the first page began, "if you're reading this, you've already proven you have the patience and perception I always saw in you. What I'm about to share must remain our secret. The true legacy of Mason Gallery isn't in its walls, but below them." My heart raced as I turned the pages. The journal detailed an incredible story that spanned decades. Grandpa Theo hadn't just been a gallery owner. He'd been part of a network of art preservationists working to protect masterpieces during troubled times. The gallery's basement, it seemed, held more than just storage. A series of detailed drawings showed a complex system of hidden rooms beneath the main floor. According to the journal, Grandpa Theo had spent years secretly modifying the building's original foundation, creating a climate-controlled vault that no one else knew existed. "The key," he wrote, "opens more than just a door. It opens a legacy I've spent my life building. But be careful, Emma. Others have searched for this collection, and not all of them have honest intentions." A sharp knock at the front door made me jump. Marcus stood outside, his expression impatient. I quickly hid the journal and composed myself before letting him in. "Well, if it isn't the curator of dust," he smirked, striding past me. "I brought some potential buyers. They're interested in turning this place into luxury condos. Behind him stood two men in expensive suits, developers, by the look of them. They immediately began discussing load-bearing walls and square footage, treating the gallery's history like an inconvenience to be demolished. The basement would make excellent parking space, one of them said, consulting his tablet. According to the original plans, it's mostly unused. I felt a chill. If they started digging around down there. The gallery isn't for sale, I said firmly. Marcus's face darkened. Don't be ridiculous, Emma. This place is worthless as an art gallery. You can barely pay the utilities. I said no. Look, Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. I know you had some sentimental attachment to Grandpa's little hobby, but it's time to grow up. Take the money and walk away. I met his gaze steadily. Like you did, taking the millions while contributing nothing. His face flushed red. I earned my inheritance by learning the business, not wasting time listening to an old man's fairy tales about art. Get out. My voice was quiet but firm. All of you. You're making a mistake, Marcus warned as I ushered them toward the door. I'm trying to help you. I don't need your kind of help. After they left, I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding. Marcus wouldn't give up easily. He never did. I needed to work fast. Returning to the journal, I studied the basement plans carefully. The entrance to the vault, according to Grandpa Theo's notes, was hidden behind a false wall in the basement's northwest corner. The key would activate a mechanism, but only if used correctly. Taking a deep breath, I descended the basement stairs. The space was exactly as I remembered. Rows of metal shelving holding wrapped paintings and sculptures, old exhibition materials, and decades of paperwork. But now I saw it with new eyes. Following the journal's instructions, I made my way to the northwest corner. At first glance, it looked solid. Bare concrete walls meeting at a right angle. But when I ran my fingers along the surface, I felt subtle irregularities in the pattern. The key fit perfectly into what appeared to be a small crack in the concrete. With trembling hands, I turned it according to the sequence described in the journal. 3/4 right, 1/4 left, then right again. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I heard it. A soft click followed by the whisper of hidden machinery. The false wall swung inward silently, revealing a steel door with a sophisticated electronic keypad. The journal had prepared me for this too. The code was based on a significant date, the day Grandpa Theo first opened the gallery, but written in a specific format. I entered the numbers carefully. 19,650,412. The door opened with a gentle hiss, and climate-controlled air washed over me. Motion-activated lights flickered on, illuminating a sight that took my breath away. The vault was massive, far larger than should have been possible. Rows of carefully preserved paintings lined the walls, each one protected in a custom-designed case. Sculptures stood on pedestals, their forms casting intricate shadows. Display cases held smaller pieces, rare manuscripts, ancient artifacts, and pieces I recognized from my art history studies, but had never expected to see in person. In the center of the room stood a simple desk with a letter placed precisely in the middle. With shaking hands, I opened it. My dearest Emma, welcome to the True Mason Gallery. What you see around you is the work of a lifetime. Not just mine, but the efforts of countless others who believed in preserving beauty and history. Each piece here has a story, and now those stories are yours to protect. You'll find full documentation for every item in the vault, their provenance, their history, and most importantly, their rightful owners. Some of these pieces were entrusted to me for safekeeping during difficult times. Others were rescued from those who would have destroyed them for profit or politics. This collection isn't meant to be sold or displayed for prestige. It exists to be protected until the right time comes for each piece to return home. I've chosen you for this task because you understand that art isn't about price tags or status. It's about preserving the thread of human creativity that connects us all. In the rear of the vault, you'll find a smaller room. That collection is different. Pieces I acquired legally over the years, carefully authenticated and documented. Those belong to you now, to do with as you see fit. They should provide more than enough resources to maintain both the gallery and the vault's mission. Be careful, be patient, and above all, be true to the responsibility you now hold. All my love, Grandpa Theo. I spent hours in the vault, examining each piece with wonder. The collection was staggering. Works by masters I'd only read about, pieces thought lost to history, and others whose existence had only been rumored. In the private collection Grandpa Theo had mentioned, I found dozens of carefully selected works by artists whose values had skyrocketed over the decades. Even a conservative estimate put their worth well over $100 million. But it wasn't the money that brought tears to my eyes. It was the trust my grandfather had placed in me, the legacy he prepared me for all those years ago without my knowing it. A notification on my phone broke the spell. Multiple missed calls from Marcus and a text. "This isn't over. You're making a huge mistake." I looked around the vault, at the priceless collection my brother would have sold without a second thought, and smiled. For the first time since inheriting the gallery, I felt completely certain of my path forward. Carefully securing the vault, I headed back upstairs. There was work to be done. The gallery needed renovation, security needed upgrading, and I had a legacy to protect. Marcus was right about one thing. This wasn't over. But he had no idea what he was really fighting against. While he plotted to seize what he thought was a worthless building, I was now the guardian of something far more valuable than money could measure. Looking up at the gallery's walls, I whispered, "Thank you, Grandpa Theo. I won't let you down." The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. I hired contractors to restore the gallery's original features, but only after having them sign ironclad confidentiality agreements. The basement remained strictly off-limits, listed as undergoing environmental assessment to deter curious eyes. I spent my nights studying Grandpa Theo's journal, learning the stories behind each piece in the vault. Some had been rescued from Nazi looting during World War II, others from more recent conflicts. Each artwork had its own detailed file, including documentation about its rightful owners and the circumstances that had brought it into my grandfather's care. But Marcus, true to his word, wasn't giving up. First came the legal threats. A thick envelope arrived from his lawyers, claiming that the gallery's deteriorated condition constituted negligent management of family assets and demanding an immediate sale. I handed it to my own attorney, a specialist in art law whom I'd quietly retained using funds from selling just one minor piece from my grandfather's personal collection. Then came the financial pressure. Marcus used his connections to interfere with the gallery's insurance, its utility services, even its property tax assessment. Each time, I countered his moves using resources he didn't know I had. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday morning. I arrived at the gallery to find Marcus waiting with two men I didn't recognize. "These gentlemen are from the Boston Historical Society," he said, his smile sharp as a razor. "They're very interested in examining the building's original foundation. Apparently, there are concerns about structural integrity." I knew instantly They weren't from any historical society. The way they carried themselves, the subtle bulges under their jackets. These were private investigators, or worse. The gallery is closed for renovations, I said firmly. Any inspections need to be scheduled through proper channels. One of the men stepped forward. We have authorization to leave. I cut him off, or I'll call the actual authorities. After they left, Marcus lingered. What are you hiding, Emma? There's something in this building worth protecting, isn't there? Something Grandpa Theo left behind. The only thing I'm protecting is this gallery's future, I replied. Why can't you accept that? His expression darkened. Because I know you. You were always his favorite, always listening to his stories. He must have told you something, left you some clue. The clue was in plain sight, Marcus. You just never cared enough to look. That night, I knew I had to accelerate my plans. Marcus was getting desperate, and desperate people make dangerous choices. I spent hours in the vault, carefully documenting everything. Then I made 3 phone calls, one to an old friend at the FBI's art crime team, one to a contact at Interpol, and one to the world's leading expert in art repatriation. 2 days later, Marcus made his move. I was working late when I heard the basement door open. Security cameras showed 3 men in dark clothing making their way down the stairs. Marcus wasn't with them, but I had no doubt who had sent them. Calmly, I pressed the silent alarm. Not the gallery's regular system, but a special one I'd had installed that connected directly to law enforcement. Then I made my way to the basement. The men were already at the northwest corner, examining the wall with professional equipment. They'd barely glanced at me when I entered. Looking for something? I asked. Lady, just walk away. One of them growled. This doesn't concern you. Actually, I smiled. It concerns me very much. So do the federal agents who just surrounded the building. As if on cue, voices boomed from above. FBI. This is a federal art crimes investigation. Everyone remain where you are. What followed was a blur of activity. The would-be thieves were arrested. Marcus, tracked through their phones, was picked up at his home. The search warrants revealed everything. His hired thugs, his plans for the gallery, even his connections to certain unscrupulous collectors who trafficked in stolen art. But the real surprise came the next morning. I had arranged for a special meeting at the gallery. Present were representatives from museums and cultural institutions around the world, along with officials from various governments. Together, we descended into the vault. Their gasps echoed off the walls as the lights revealed the collection. Tears flowed as long-lost masterpieces were rediscovered. Museum directors hugged each other as pieces thought destroyed were found perfectly preserved. I shared everything. Grandpa Theo's documentation, his detailed records, the stories of how each piece had come into his care. Over the next year, we would work together to repatriate every artwork to its rightful place, earning the gallery international recognition, not for what it possessed, but for what it returned. Marcus watched it all unfold from behind bars, his reputation and freedom lost to his own greed. The evidence found in his home had implicated him in other art trafficking schemes, ensuring he'd have plenty of time to reflect on his choices. As for the gallery itself, I used part of Grandpa Theo's personal collection to establish a foundation dedicated to protecting and preserving art during times of conflict. The gallery became a center for education and advocacy, teaching future generations about the importance of cultural heritage. 1 year to the day after discovering the vault, I stood in the newly renovated main hall. The space was filled with light. The original architectural details restored to their former glory. A special exhibition was opening, not of precious masterpieces, but of works by emerging local artists, just as Grandpa Theo had showcased when he first opened the gallery. In my office, once Grandpa Theo's sanctuary, I keep two things on my desk. The first is his journal, a reminder of the legacy he entrusted to me. The second is a small news clipping from the day Marcus was sentenced, not out of spite, but as a reminder that true value isn't found in what you can take, but in what you choose to protect. The gallery still bears the Mason name, but it stands for something different now. Not just a family legacy, but a commitment to preserving art for future generations. Every day, as I walk through these halls, I feel Grandpa Theo's presence, and I know he would be proud. Sometimes, late in the evening when the gallery is quiet, I think about that moment when I first found the hidden compartment in the floor. How close I came to giving up, to letting Marcus turn this place into just another luxury development. But Grandpa Theo had taught me well. The greatest treasures aren't always visible at first glance, and some things are worth far more than their market value. The vault beneath the gallery is empty now, its contents returned to their rightful homes around the world. But the space remains, ready if ever needed again, a secret chamber waiting to protect the next piece of history that needs saving. And sometimes, when young artists visit the gallery, their eyes shining with the same passion I once saw in Grandpa Theo's, I share with them his favorite saying: true value isn't always visible at first glance. Sometimes the greatest treasures hide in plain sight, waiting for the right person to discover them. They never know that I'm not just talking about art. The gallery that everyone thought was worthless turned out to be priceless, not because of what it contained, but because of what it stood for: a legacy of protection, preservation, and the understanding that some things are worth more than all the millions in the world. Marcus may have gotten the money in our parents' will, but I got something far more valuable: a purpose, a mission, and the chance to prove that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, but doing what's right. The Mason Gallery stands tall in downtown Boston, its windows gleaming in the sunlight. It's no longer the dusty, failing space my brother mocked. It's a beacon of hope, a guardian of culture, and a testament to the fact that true worth often lies far deeper than the surface. And me? I'm no longer just Emma Mason, the disappointment who got the worthless inheritance. I'm the protector of a legacy that spans generations, the keeper of a tradition that values preservation over profit, and the proof that sometimes the best things in life really do come covered in dust, if you just know where to look. I stood in the dining room of Rosemary's, our family's flagship restaurant, staring at the wall of framed photos that chronicled our history. 25 years of memories captured in fading prints. My grandfather opening the first location in 1980, my parents taking over in 1995, and endless shots of my sister Olivia's beaming face as she won cooking competitions and earned glowing press reviews. My face appeared exactly once, age 12, half hidden behind Olivia in a staff Christmas photo. There you are, Madison. My father's voice made me turn. He stood in the doorway, his chef's whites pristine despite the dinner rush that had just ended. Your mother and I need to talk to you. Join us in the office? I nodded, already knowing what this conversation would be about. At 32, Olivia was ready to take over the family business, our chain of upscale Italian restaurants now worth over $2 million. And I, at 28, was about to be officially pushed aside. The office still smelled exactly the same. Garlic and herbs from the kitchen mingled with the leather of my father's ancient desk chair. Mom sat perched on the edge of the desk, while Olivia lounged in one of the visitor chairs, scrutinizing her perfect manicure. "Have a seat, honey." Mom gestured to the remaining chair. Her smile was gentle, but didn't quite reach her eyes. I sat, smoothing my simple black dress, the one I wore for my job managing the books at Rosemary's. Numbers were the only thing my parents trusted me with, and even then, Olivia had final approval on everything. "Madison," Dad began, settling into his chair. "You know we've been discussing succession planning for the business. Your sister has proven herself more than capable of taking Rosemary's to the next level." Olivia preened. Of course she had. They'd handed her every opportunity while relegating me to background roles. "We've decided it's time," Mom continued. "Olivia will assume full ownership and control of all restaurant operations, effective next month." I waited for the rest. Surely there would be some role for me, some acknowledgement of my years of quiet contribution. The silence stretched. "And me?" I finally asked. Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Well, sweetheart, we think it's best if you explore other opportunities. Your sister has a very specific vision for the future of Rosemary's." "What your father means," Olivia cut in, her voice dripping with fake sympathy, "is that we'll be bringing in professional financial staff. Let's be honest, Madison, you're not really cut out for the restaurant business. You've never had the passion for it like I do." I gripped the arms of my chair, memories flooding back. 12-year-old me, begging to help in the kitchen only to be told I'd get in the way. 16-year-old me, suggesting menu improvements that were dismissed without consideration. 20-year-old me, graduating top of my class in business school while Olivia got all the praise for winning a local cooking contest. "We'll give you an excellent severance package," Mom added quickly. 3 months' salary. That should give you time to find something more suitable." "I see." I stood up slowly, my mind already racing ahead. "And I assume you'll want me out by the end of the week." "That would be best," Olivia smiled. "The new financial team starts Monday." I nodded curtly and walked out, ignoring my mother's call of "Madison, wait." Behind me, I heard Olivia's dismissive laugh. "Oh, let her go, Mom. She'll get over it." But I wouldn't get over it. Not this time. That night, I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by spreadsheets and business plans I'd been quietly working on for years. Every time they dismissed my ideas, I'd refined them. Every time they'd pushed me aside, I'd strengthened my resolve. They thought I lacked passion. They had no idea. I pulled up the lease agreement on my laptop, the one I'd signed last week for the vacant storefront directly next door to Rosemary's. The landlord had been surprised when I offered above market rate, but location was everything. Opening my meticulously organized files, I reviewed my concept again. While Rosemary's catered to the dinner crowd with white tablecloths and $40 pasta dishes, I saw an untapped market. Young professionals wanting quality coffee, fresh pastries, and quick but sophisticated lunch options. A modern cafe with Italian influences, but none of the stuffiness. I'd spent years studying customer patterns, noting complaints, and identifying gaps in the local restaurant scene. While Olivia focused on impressing food critics, I'd watched what actually brought in steady profits. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Sophia. "Just heard what happened. You okay?" I smiled grimly and replied, "Better than okay. Remember that business plan I showed you? It's time." Sophia had been the only person who believed in me from the start. As the head pastry chef at an exclusive hotel downtown, she'd even offered to consult on my menu development. The next morning, I walked into Rosemary's for what would be my last day. The morning prep crew barely looked up as I passed through the kitchen. I'd always been practically invisible here anyway. In my small office, I methodically gathered my personal items while downloading copies of all the financial records I'd legally created. Clearing out already, Olivia appeared in the doorway, a smug smile playing on her lips. I thought you'd at least finish the week. I carefully placed my succulents in a box. No point dragging it out. I'm sure your new team is eager to start. She walked in, running a finger along my desk. You know, I did try to convince Mom and Dad to keep you on in some capacity. Maybe as a hostess. But they agreed you need to find your own path. I bit back a laugh. Classic Olivia, always making sure to appear generous while twisting the knife. How thoughtful of you. Well, family is family. She paused. Though I hope you understand you won't be getting any friends and family discounts at the restaurants. It wouldn't be fair to other customers. Don't worry, I said, picking up my box. I won't be eating here anymore. Her smile faltered slightly at my calm tone. She'd expected tears, pleading, anything but this quiet confidence. Good luck with whatever you end up doing, she called after me as I walked out. Maybe accounting? You were always good with numbers. If she noticed me smiling as I left, she probably assumed I was holding back tears. She had no idea. The next few months passed in a blur of activity. While Olivia hogged the local restaurant media spotlight with her bold new vision for Rosemary's, I quietly assembled my team. Sophia agreed to oversee our pastry program while maintaining her hotel job. Her reputation alone would draw attention. I hired Maria, a brilliant young barista who'd won several regional competitions but felt stifled by corporate coffee chains. Jack, a former line cook from Rosemary's who'd quit after Olivia took over, signed on to run our savory kitchen. He brought with him several other staff who'd grown tired of my sister's management style. The construction crew worked day and night transforming the empty storefront. Floor-to-ceiling windows would flood the space with natural light. The coffee bar, crafted from reclaimed wood and Italian marble, would be a showpiece. Every detail was carefully chosen to create an atmosphere that was both welcoming and sophisticated. I threw myself into every aspect of the business. While managing construction, I also focused on brand development, menu testing, and staff training. My savings account dwindled, but my small business loan would cover the remaining startup costs. I had one shot at this, and I wasn't going to waste it. The day we installed the sign was when reality truly hit home. Mattina, meaning morning in Italian, in elegant gold letters against deep blue. Through the construction barriers, I could see Olivia watching from Rosemary's window, her expression unreadable. Let her watch. Let them all watch. 2 weeks before our planned opening, I was reviewing coffee bean orders when Jack burst into my office, his face pale. Madison, you need to see this. He handed me his phone, open to the local restaurant news website. The headline made my blood run cold. Rosemary's ANNOUNCE. NUCAFA CEPT. Bureau Hingy and beloved Italian flavors to breakfast and lunchy. My hands shook as I read the article. Olivia was launching a cafe menu at all Rosemary's locations. Breakfast pastries, gourmet sandwiches, specialty coffee drinks, nearly identical to what we planned. And they were starting with the flagship location, next door. They must have gotten wind of our concept. Someone had talked, or they'd seen our permit applications, and now they were trying to crush us before we could even open. I looked up to find my entire team watching me anxiously. They'd all taken huge risks to join this venture. Some had quit stable jobs. They believed in my vision, and I couldn't let them down. "Call everyone in," I said, standing up. "Emergency meeting in 20 minutes. As my staff filed into our unfinished dining room, I took a deep breath. This wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. My family had underestimated me my entire life, but they'd never seen what I was truly capable of. Time to show them. The emergency team meeting lasted until midnight. Empty coffee cups and discarded ideas littered our makeshift conference table, a piece of plywood balanced on sawhorses. But by the time we finished, we had a plan. They think they can beat us at our own game. I stood at the head of the table, surveying my tired but determined staff. Let them try. We're not just opening a cafe. We're creating something entirely new. Over the next week, we completely revamped our concept. While Rosemary's would offer watered-down versions of standard cafe fare, we would innovate. Our pastry chef, Sophia, developed hybrid creations that combined Italian and Asian flavors: matcha tiramisu, yuzu cannoli, black sesame bomboloni. Each item was photographed for our social media campaign, generating buzz before we even opened. Maria, our head barista, designed a coffee program that went beyond typical espresso drinks. She sourced rare beans from small Italian farms and created signature drinks that told a story. The Vesuvius, a volcanic-looking layered espresso drink with chocolate ash, became our Instagram star. But our biggest innovation came from an unexpected source. Jack, our kitchen manager, had been experimenting with rapid cooking techniques that could deliver restaurant-quality meals in cafe timing. "Look at this," he demonstrated, pulling a perfectly cooked pasta dish from a specialized heating unit. 3 minutes from order to plate, and the quality matches any full-service restaurant. We installed a line of these units, allowing us to offer hot, fresh meals in record time. Perfect for business lunches when people couldn't spend an hour at Rosemary's. The morning of our opening, I arrived at 4 a.m. to find a line already forming. Our social media campaign had worked better than expected. The first 100 customers would receive limited edition Matina coffee tumblers, and people wanted them. Through our windows, I could see lights on at Rosemary's. Olivia was there, watching. They'd rushed to launch their cafe menu 2 days earlier, but the reviews had been lukewarm. Traditional pastries and basic coffee drinks couldn't compete with what we were about to unveil. At precisely 6 a.m., I unlocked our doors. The space was stunning, modern yet warm, with that reclaimed wood and marble bar as our centerpiece. The aroma of freshly baked pastries and specialty coffee filled the air. "Welcome to Matina," I greeted the first customers, a group of young professionals headed to nearby offices. Their eyes widened as they took in the display case filled with Sophia's creations. "Are those yuzu cannoli?" One woman pressed her face against the glass. "I saw these on Instagram." By 7 a.m., we had a constant line of 30 people. By noon, we'd sold out of most pastries and had to rush additional batches. Our quick-service pasta dishes were a huge hit with the lunch crowd, many of whom had walked out of Rosemary's when told about their 45-minute wait time. I was expediting orders when I saw them, my parents and Olivia, walking through our doors. They tried to look casual, but I could see them scrutinizing everything: the innovative menu, the efficient service, the full tables, the constant line. Olivia picked up a menu, her perfectly manicured fingernails gripping the recycled paper. "Fast casual Italian fusion." She sniffed. "Hardly authentic." I stepped out from behind the counter, radiating calm confidence. Can I help you find something? The black sesame bomboloni are our best seller this morning. Madison, my mother started, then faltered as she looked around the busy cafe. This wasn't the failing business they'd expected to find. My father cleared his throat. Interesting concept you have here, though I'm not sure it fits with the neighborhood's character. I gestured to our packed dining room. The neighborhood seems to disagree. Now, if you'll excuse me, we have customers waiting. They left without ordering, but I knew this wasn't over. Olivia's face had that look, the one she got when plotting something. Sure enough, 2 days later, Rosemary's announced they were slashing their breakfast and lunch prices by 30%. They're trying to undercut us, Jack worried, showing me their new menu. We can't match those prices and stay profitable. We don't need to, I assured him. Quality speaks for itself. I was right. Despite Rosemary's price cuts, our business kept growing. Word spread about our unique offerings and quick service. Food bloggers raved about our fusion pastries. Local offices started ordering catering. We had lines out the door every morning. Then came the call that changed everything. Ms. Bennett. The voice was crisp, professional. This is Marcus Chin from Venture Capital Partners. We've been hearing interesting things about Matina. Would you be open to discussing expansion opportunities? I sat down, my hands shaking slightly. This was it, the chance to grow beyond what my family thought possible. But first, I had to handle a more immediate crisis. Sophia burst into my office, her chef's coat dusted with flour. Madison, we have a problem. Someone's been trying to poach our staff, offering double salary to work at Rosemary's new cafe division. I smiled grimly. Of course, Olivia would try this tactic. Call a staff meeting. Time to let everyone in on phase 2 of our plan. The next morning, I walked into the VC meeting with a detailed expansion proposal, not just for 1 or 2 new locations, but for a complete reimagining of the quick service dining industry. Our goal isn't to compete with traditional restaurants, I explained, pointing to my projections. We're creating a new category entirely. High-end quality with fast casual efficiency. And we can replicate this model anywhere. Marcus leaned forward, intrigued. And your current location's numbers support this? I handed him our first quarter financials. His eyebrows rose as he reviewed them. Very impressive. But I have to ask, what about competition? Particularly from established local restaurants. He was diplomatic, but I knew he meant Rosemary's. Competition drives innovation, I said confidently. We've already proven we can succeed against established players. Now we're ready to expand that success. 2 weeks later, I signed the investment deal. $10 million in first-round funding with an aggressive expansion plan. We would open 5 new locations in the next year, each with our signature blend of quality, speed, and innovation. The news hit the local restaurant scene like a bombshell. Olivia's attempts to copy our concept suddenly looked small and derivative. Everyone was talking about the future of dining, and Matina was leading the conversation. Walking into work the morning after the announcement, I found an envelope on my desk. Inside was a note in my mother's handwriting. Perhaps we should talk. Mom. I tucked the note away without responding. They'd had years to talk, years to see my potential. Now they could watch what happened next. The first new Matina location opened 4 months later in the heart of the financial district. The line on opening day stretched for 3 blocks. 2 months after that, we launched in the trendy arts district, adding evening hours and a wine program. Each new location brought innovations. We introduced automated ordering systems that remembered customer preferences. Our kitchens became models of efficiency, delivering complex dishes in minutes. The press started calling us the future of Italian dining. Rosemary's, meanwhile, struggled to keep up. Their attempts to modernize felt forced and confused their traditional customer base. I heard through industry gossip that their profits were dropping. Then came the headline that shook the local restaurant world. Rosemary closes 2 locations. Traditional restaurant chain faces modern dining challenges. Seeing that article, I felt no joy. This hadn't been about destroying my family's business. It was about building something true to my own vision, something that would make a real difference in the industry. That evening, as I was reviewing plans for our 6th location, my office phone rang. The caller ID showed Olivia Bennett. I stared at the phone for a long moment, thinking about everything that had led to this point. Then calmly, I picked up the receiver. Madison? Olivia's voice wavered, lacking its usual confidence. We need to talk. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city lights. In the reflection of my office window, I could see the gleaming signs of 3 Mattina locations. I'm listening. Can we meet? In person? She paused. Please, it's important. An hour later, I sat across from Olivia at a neutral location, an upscale bar downtown. She looked different, somehow smaller. The perfectly curated appearance remained, but stress had left its mark. We're losing everything, she said without preamble, staring into her untouched wine. Rosemary's is failing. 2 locations closed, and the others are barely breaking even. The banks are threatening to call our loans. I took a measured sip of my drink. I'm aware of your situation. Of course you are. She laughed bitterly. You probably knew before we did. You always were better with numbers. What do you want, Olivia? She straightened, composing herself. We want to propose a merger. Rosemary's and Mattina. Combined resources, shared expertise. We cold. No. The word came out sharp and final. You haven't even heard the terms. I don't need to. I set my glass down carefully. Mattina is valued at $50 million, Olivia. We're opening our 15th location next month, with 30 more planned for next year. We don't need Rosemary's resources or expertise. We're still family, she whispered. Are we? When was the last time you treated me like family? She flinched. I know we make mistakes. Mistakes? I cut in. You systematically pushed me aside for years. You took every opportunity to belittle me, to remind me I wasn't good enough. When you forced me out, you didn't even have the decency to be honest about it. You wrapped it in fake concern and condescension. I was wrong, she said quietly. We all were. Watching what you've built, it's extraordinary, Madison. You've revolutionized the entire industry while we were clinging to outdated traditions. I studied her face, searching for the manipulation I'd grown so accustomed to seeing. But for once, my sister seemed genuine. Here's what I'll offer, I said finally. Not a merger. Mattina remains independent, but I'll buy the original Rosemary's location, the one grandfather built. I'll keep the name and some signature dishes, but modernize the concept. A single high-end dinner venue to complement our fast casual empire. And the other locations? Close them. They're not viable anymore. Use the sale proceeds to pay off your debts. After that, if you're interested, we might discuss a position at Mattina. Entry level. No special treatment. You'd have to earn any advancement. Her eyes widened. You'd really give me a chance? After everything? Everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves. I had to build mine from nothing. You'll at least have a foundation. 2 days later, I sat in my parents' living room, reviewing the sales contract for Rosemary's. My father kept shaking his head, staring at the purchase price. All these years, he murmured, we never saw. You saw what you wanted to see, I replied, initialing another page. You decided early on that Olivia was the successful one, the one with potential. You never bothered to look deeper. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Can you ever forgive us? I paused, considering the question. I'm not angry anymore. Building Matina taught me something important. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. The acquisition of Rosemary's flagship location made headlines in the restaurant industry. But the bigger story came 3 months later, when Matina announced our nationwide expansion plan. 100 locations across the country, plus our first international ventures in London and Tokyo. The day we opened the reimagined Rosemary's, I stood in that same dining room where the family photos hung. The wall had been redesigned, now telling a different story. Photos of grandfather still held pride of place, but alongside them were images of Matina's journey. My journey. Olivia, now 6 months into her role managing quality control for our pastry program, joined me. I heard Tokyo's opening beat all projections, she said, and London's already got a waiting list for franchises. I nodded. The Dubai team flies in next week to discuss Middle East expansion. She shook her head in amazement. A global empire built from a tiny cafe next door. You know what the irony is? If we hadn't tried to copy your concept that first day, if we just let you do your thing, Rosemary's might have survived. Maybe, but then I might not have pushed so hard to innovate. Sometimes our biggest challenges lead to our greatest successes. Later that night, after the last customers had left and the staff had gone home, I sat alone in my office reviewing expansion plans. On my desk sat a small plaque, given to me that morning by my team. It read, Madison Bennett, founder and CEO, Matina International, from a single door to a worldwide welcome. I picked up the plaque, running my fingers over the engraved words. Success wasn't just about the money, the locations, or even proving my family wrong. It was about staying true to your vision, even when no one else could see it. My phone buzzed. Photos from the Tokyo location's soft opening. The lines stretched for blocks, just like that first morning next door to Rosemary's. But now, the crowds weren't just waiting for coffee and pastries. They were waiting to be part of something revolutionary. I opened my laptop to review the latest innovation proposals from our R&D team. We were exploring AI-driven ordering systems, sustainable sourcing initiatives, and revolutionary kitchen automation. The $50 million empire was just the beginning. The sun was rising by the time I finally left the office. I passed the original Matina location, now a historical landmark in our company's story. The sign still glowed warmly in the early morning light, welcoming another day of possibilities. My family had given me nothing, believing I'd amount to nothing, but they taught me the most valuable lesson of all. The only limits that matter are the ones you accept for yourself. Standing there in the growing light, I smiled. Time to start another day of proving just how limitless those possibilities could be.